Over close to Slater Park. Yeah, right over there. I can actually walk to the park, and then my brother just lives 3 streets down, which is nice. So, yeah, it's nice over there. I like it. In Pawtucket? Yeah. Okay. Slater. My mom taught at Slater. My wife actually teaches there now. Yep, in Oakville. It's a good school. It's right where you live. That's ours. We're sending our kids to Barrier now, but middle school is not an option. If we're closer to the Columbus school, we would have applied then. This is my sister's neighbor.
And look at, oh, I don't know if I have it in here. They just, this is literally the note that they just gave me, letting me know that they put the, Yeah, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Rob Cagnetta, and this is a meeting of the South Kingstown, Rhode Island Zoning Board of Review. Members tonight that are present are Thomas Daniels, our Vice Chairman, William Rosen, Arlene Hicks, Kevin Pelsier, and Jeff Elia. Also present are Peter Squiras of the South Kingstown Special Legal Counsel, Jamie Gorman, the South Kingstown Building and Zoning Official, and Jessica Spence, the Administrative Support Associate. This board is made up of 8 people, where 5 of us are regular voting members. A minimum of 4 members are required to be present to vote. In the event that regular members are absent or recused, an alternate member or members will step in. No more than 5 members are entitled to a vote. Tonight, voting members will be Mr. Daniels, Mr. Rosen, Ms. Hicks, myself, and Mr. Pelsier, and Mr. Elia is going to vote on one of them. So, applicants are here for either a variance, which is a dimensional or a use, to seek a special use permit. The board is a quasi-judicial body created by the South Kingstown Ordinance pursuant to state statutes. We don't follow strict rules of evidence, and we operate in what we believe to be in a fair and equitable manner. We try to let everyone speak unless you get carried away or it's determined not to be relevant. So in the interest of time, try to be on point and be brief. And we do our best not to argue and keep things civil, and we try to have our last petition heard by 10 o'clock. When your petition is called, I'm going to read in everything to the record, but once everything is read in, you can come up to the podium and stand up there. Clearly state your name and spell it for the record, and then you'll speak clearly so everybody can hear you. Apparently I'm having trouble. But then you'll be asked to take an oath to tell the truth, and when you present your petition along with other witnesses to testify in your support. The board will then ask you or witnesses questions. After the petitioner has presented their testimony, anyone else with questions about the application or wanting to support or oppose the petition will then be asked to step forward. They will identify themselves, be sworn in, and present their testimony, which may be followed up by questions from the board. Please do not direct any questions to the petitioner or any other witnesses. We will allow the petitioner to answer the questions raised by the audience and or respond to comments after the comment period. So after hearing all testimony and before a vote is taken, members will be asked to openly discuss the evidence presented. So you're aware, variance and special use permits require at least 3 of us to vote in favor of the petition for the granting of the requested relief. Board members will ask a lot of questions, and there's a good reason. We cannot just choose anything we choose. We cannot just grant anything we choose. There are rules to follow per the South Kingstown ordinance, so you must give testimony to support certain facts to allow your request to be approved, and we'll help you do that. Tonight, we have both dimensional and special use permits on the agenda. For the dimensional variance, you must offer the evidence to the board setting forth the following: that your hardship is due to the unique characteristics or subject land or the structure, and it's not due to the general characteristics of the surrounding area; that your hardship is not the result of any prior action on your part; and that granting of the variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area; and that you must show that the hardship that will be suffered if it is not granted will amount to more than a mere inconvenience. So, meaning that the relief sought is minimal and for the reasonable enjoyment of the permitted use to which the property is proposed to be devoted. For a special use permit is different. You must present the following: that the special use permit requesting is specifically authorized by the zoning ordinance. So somewhere in our zoning ordinance, it has to be authorized, or we do not have the power to even grant it or even for it to be up here in the first place. Special use permits requested have to meet all the criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance which authorize that special use, and we'll go over that. And then granting of the special use will not alter the general characteristics of the surrounding area or impair the purpose or intent of the zoning ordinance. So that is that. Jessica, is there anything in particular we have to cover before we get started? All right. So we're going to start with the petition of CAF Bar, and which is on 396 Main Street, Wakefield, Rhode Island, 02879. They wanted a special use permit under the zoning ordinance as follows: that the applicant was seeking a special use permit to expand the alcohol services within the building related to the existing restaurant with alcohol, which is the CAF Bar. Lot size is 0.16 acres. And the special use permit is required under the zoning ordinance, section 301, schedule of use regulations table, and sections 907 of standards of relief. Owner of the property is 396 Main Street LLC for premises located at 396 Main Street, South Kingstown. We have a request. It was per email, right? I thought I printed it out. Please.
This was received March 19th from Attorney James Callahan. Hi, Jessica. We need more time to gather all of the materials for the new standards. Please continue us to the next date. Thanks, James.
And what is the next date?
April 24th.
So I'll make a motion to continue the matter for CAF Bar to April 24th, 2024. Can I get a second? Second. Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Hearing none. Cagnetta, aye. Daniels, aye. Rosen,
Aye.
Hicks,
Aye.
and Elia? Aye. No, sorry.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, motion passes. We'll see that next month, which is already a busy month. All right, so next we have the petition of James and Margaret Siligato of 4060 Tower Hill Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island, 02879, for an appeal of a zoning decision of the zoning enforcement officer. Under the zoning ordinance as follows: the applicant is seeking to appeal the notice of violation issued by the zoning enforcement officer dated December 26, 2023, for premises located at 4060 Tower Hill Road. The owners of the property are James and Margaret Siligato for the premises located at 4060 Tower Hill Road, South Kingstown, Assessors Map 34-3, Lot 2, and is zoned R80. For this petition, we have the application. No. Yep. We have the application signed and dated January 12th, 2024. Notice of violation, which is 6 pages, dated December 26, 2023, with corresponding photos A through D. We have a continuation request by attorney Michael J. Riley dated February 15th, 2024, and a 200-foot abutters list and radius map, legal notices, and notarized affidavit of mailing. Good evening.
Good evening, sir, and ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Michael Riley, R-I-L-E-Y. I'm an attorney with an office at 178 Broadway in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm here this evening on behalf of James and Margaret Siligato. As you mentioned, it's an appeal of the notice of violation issued by the building official of the town. I believe that was dated December 26th, 2023. The property at 4060 Tower Hill Road has historically been used as a small engine repair shop. I'm sure many of the folks on the board are familiar with the property. It stands out on Tower Hill Road, and it's been an integral part of the community for servicing the landscaping needs and even the, from what I heard this evening, the public safety department for the town, the fire department, et cetera, for the, the maintenance of small engines for much of the community. It is the home of all outdoors power equipment and Narragansett Pest Control. And it's currently classified, and I agree with what was said in the notice of violation, as a wholesale trade with outdoor storage, which under the zoning ordinances use code 42. The notice of violation dated December 26th alleged 3 violations. To the best of my knowledge, 2 have already been abated. One was the removal of signs that were attached to the fence in question, which I'm going to get to in a moment, and another was the storage of vehicles on the property, which I believe they've rectified. Okay. Drilling down to the issues that we're here tonight is the violation that the premises owners expanded the legal non-conforming use of the existing parcel by erecting a fence to store their equipment outdoors. One thing that I'd like to point out is that the findings deemed that it was an expansion of a non-conforming use. And the letter went on to explain that the Zoning Board of Review may grant a special use permit to allow an expansion of non-conforming use. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the changes of the statute and the requirements for special use permits. I'm going to stay particularly within the confines of the notice of violation, which alleged that the use of the outdoor area was an expansion, to which I disagree. Okay. The erection of the fence was not an expansion of a structure. It wasn't an expansion of the building. It wasn't a reconfiguration of the building. The erection of the fence was simply the means to secure customers' equipment while it's in queue to be repaired by the property owner. Rhode Island General Laws 4524-31, Part 52 defines nonconformance as a building, structure, or parcel of land or use thereof lawfully existing at the time of the adoption or amendment of a zoning ordinance in nonconformity with the provisions of that ordinance or amendment. At the time that the Siligatos purchased the property, which was approximately in the year 1999, the existing owner operated a very similar business. He had a lawnmower shop, he did repair on site, and he used the premises for the display of equipment, and he also repaired it. That, I believe, is the reasoning behind the zoning official's determination that the property does enjoy legal nonconformance, because that predated the zoning ordinance that was enacted, I believe, in '96. So nonconforming by use is a lawfully established use of the land, and the use of the land was, in addition to the sale of small engines and the repair of small engines, it was outdoor storage. And that's how it's confined to use code 52, which I said a moment ago is wholesale trade with outdoor storage. This was the proper determination. Use code 52, excuse me. It allows, the building materials, a lumber yard, all outdoor things. And in addition to what I believe the classification of the use is, contractors, equipment, rental, storage, and maintenance, because I believe that's what the ongoing use of the property is. So that fits squarely in use code 42. An expansion, as defined by section 202 of the Town of South Kingston zoning ordinance, says that a non-conforming use may occupy any parts of the structure which are designated for the use at the time of the adoption of this ordinance. A non-conforming use may expand in other ways only if granted a special use permit pursuant to the provisions of section 203. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened within the building.
So you're saying that the site is the same as it was? It would look the same as it did back in 1990 when they purchased it?
The building does. The building does.
But the grounds are used the same way as they were back then?
Exactly.
And this same footprints, same size of use of the property?
Yes, sir. So it would be my position that the outdoor storage is integral with the use code. Outdoor storage was used then, it's used now.
But the size of it is the same, you're saying?
The size, I would say that the outdoor storage encompasses the entire lot, because that was permitted. Where equipment was actually stored has changed over the time, business has increased, and, case law purports that the increase in business on its own isn't an expansion nor an intensification.
So you think they can use the whole footprint of the property for commercial use without any restriction?
Yes, I do, because the zoning ordinance doesn't have any explicit restriction on the outdoor storage. The
Okay.
use code on its own says you can have outdoor storage. Granted, I think taste to a neighborhood, you'd want to confine it to make it look appropriate, but that would be within their right to use the property for outdoor storage within the confines of the property.
Okay.
As it pertains to the building footprint, I would disagree that there was any expansion. I don't agree that a fence would be considered a structure.
I wasn't suggesting that.
Oh, I'm just put it out there on the record. And
Okay.
I
Well,
understand.
we're gonna hear from the
Understood.
zoning enforcement
Understood.
officer,
So
just
I'll
to make
move
sure.
on. So it's our position that there was not an expansion. And that was the limit of the notice of violation. The notice of violation, it quoted that it was determined that there was an expansion of the premises, to
Right.
which I've addressed.
Okay.
So, basically to recap that, the use of the land of outdoor storage is obviously integral to the non-conforming use that they enjoy. And I'd welcome any questions if you have any for me further.
Okay. No, I think I'd like to certainly hear sort of what Mr. Gorman was referring to when he was, and then we'll probably have questions
Absolutely.
after that. So I
Sure.
don't know if you want to have a seat or
Yeah, I'll have a seat.
you can stay up there. It's okay.
I'll run
Wherever you
back and
like.
forth.
So, Mr. Gorman, so what's going on at that site that we should know?
So good evening. So with respect to, there's 3 bullets that were cited in violation on the property. First being the signage on the fence. Second being the parking and storage of vehicles on the abutting property located at 241 Torrey Hill Road. And the fenced enclosure expansion. So the fence itself isn't a violation, but the equipment storage, my interpretation is that approximately 12,000 square feet, which is the wholesale trade with outdoor storage, is well beyond what was there when it was legally established, or rather when it was made non-conforming.
So saying that what I was asking him before is that if that footprint of an area that stored equipment had grown, that is an intensification, and it is your interpretation of an intensification.
Correct. So say it was perhaps if it was a non-conforming use like a junkyard, and there was vehicle storage, and then that owner took it upon himself to fill up the entire lot when there was maybe 3 spaces for vehicles originally. Now there's 100 spaces. Would that not be deemed an expansion?
Right.
So similar to that, over the years you can see that it's grown. I can understand that the fence is to keep theft or vandalism, but the fence itself isn't the violation. It's the storage and the use of that area.
Okay. Okay. Bruce, do you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to note, just because it was mentioned by the applicant, a reference to section 202E. That section involves a buildings or structure, that does say that a non-conforming use of a structure, the non-conforming use can be expanded to other parts of that same structure. So in that, I'd agree he's correct. I think what they're overlooking is that section 203, which allows a special use permit to enlarge a non-conforming use, that explicitly says non-conforming use of a building, structure, or land. So it includes just the use of land.
So how you're using the land?
Right.
Right. So but if it changed from, meadow to trees, that's not necessarily, or vice versa. It's not that. It's how you're using it for the betterment of that company, of that operation, per
Right.
se?
So if the operations were within a certain footprint
Yep,
They are entitled to apply for a special use permit to expand it by 50% if the
Right.
board grants it. An expansion on the land, but expansion beyond that or expansion without a special use permit would be prohibited.
and when does that clock start for their use, like as to their footprint that they're allowed?
It would be as of the time that the use became non-conforming. So
Okay.
in this case, it would be when the zoning was enacted that prohibited the use in their zone, the R80 zone.
And do you know when that was?
I don't have the exact date. Do you?
Did it predate their purchase in the 90s?
Likely 76 or around there, but I don't have that exact date.
So, I mean, they might not have been aware, but this has been, since they purchased the property, that they were bound by the operations
Right.
footprint.
Since they were buying it in a 280, R80 zone, I'm sorry,
Right.
they're buying it as a non-conforming use, so they can continue to maintain what the prior owner had all the way back to predating zoning, but they can't expand it
Okay.
without a special use permit or up to 50%.
Okay.
So I was just going to say that it looks like the purchase date was in 1999. And then one of the attachments to the notice of violation was an aerial from the Division of Statewide Planning from 1997, which I can pull up here, if you give me a moment.
And just to be sure, these are usable as record, to say like this photograph exists and we know it to be authentic, I guess.
You can, I mean, with regard to non-conforming uses, the burden's always on the proponent of the non-conforming use to show what the extent is.
Okay,
But I think we can safely say, you know, if Jamie is willing to assume that this shows at least some extent of a non-conforming use,
okay,
assuming that this goes all the way back to the 70s when this was enacted, it at
Right.
least goes back as far as they purchased the property. I think we can make that assumption. Of course, the ultimate burden would be if the applicant wanted to give us something else to show that this is inaccurate. They could do that, but the burden would lie with them.
unless there was some sort of plan or some site plan that was submitted years ago for some reason.
Right.
For it to be record for,
Right, or if
but
they-
that doesn't exist as far as we know.
Yeah, or if they had a survey, or if they had something in their records that showed some prior use, and they could give testimony and say, you know, when we bought it, we were doing X, Y, and Z, and, you know, they could say, you can't see it on this picture because whatever it is,
Okay,
they could do that,
sure,
but you'd have to get that evidence.
right, and that wouldn't necessarily be here. Yeah,
Well, they could either give it to Jamie, which, you know, he may, if they gave that evidence to Jamie, he may have changed his notice of violation.
Okay,
And or if they had it, they could give it to you.
okay.
So,
Okay, so we'll hear from them and see if that's something they can provide. And were you gonna say something, were you gonna add something else to that? So as for, the signage on the fence, if they removed it, then
I believe
essentially,
they already have, Mr. Chairman, I believe.
and so that's okay. And then the, abutting property parking, I don't know, is that something, did you mention that yet, or no?
The abutting property owner is a different owner, and they weren't noticed with the NOV. I think they did abate it because they're family related, but I'm not sure.
Okay. But that's in the same violation, right? The abutting
It is, so.
parking, would it be in the same violation because it's,
I mean, it's an expansion beyond and over the property line.
so it's, because now they're conducting a business on a private on a residential lot?
Correct, it'd be
Yeah.
expanded to another lot, and it may be in the same ownership or
But
relative.
that's irrelevant.
Correct.
It's still, the property line still exists?
Yeah.
Okay. That's it? Okay. No, I don't know if you're going to say anything else. We good? Okay, so we've heard, you've heard what the zoning official has said, so
Yes.
what do you think?
All right, so first off, Mr. and Mrs. Siligato are here today, and I can get testimony out of them about the use of the property prior to their acquisition of it, because obviously they negotiated from the former owner and we're familiar with the operations there. One distinction I did want to make is that the notice of violation was explicit that the violation was for expansion on the premises, and 202E is actually restricted to the structure. It's actually 202G, intensification, that incorporates the use of the land into an expansion, or rather an intensification. And I'll read that into the record just so we have a clear record. 202E, expansion, a non-conforming use may occupy any parts of a structure which are designated for such use at the time of the adoption of this ordinance. A non-conforming use may expand in other ways pursuant to 203. And 202G, intensification, a non-conforming use of a building, structure, or land shall not be intensified. That was not what was violated here.
Well, the violation is on the expansion of the outdoor activity.
Correct.
The outdoor fenced-in area that was housing equipment.
Correct.
Is bigger than it was when this aerial photograph was taken.
Correct, but I
Right.
argue that's not an expansion. That
Well,
would rather be an intensification.
We were just told it is an expansion, so I don't know.
I respectfully disagree, because it does
Okay.
not say land and party.
Yep.
And last, as it relates to the photographic evidence, it's difficult, I understand that we have the burden to establish legal nonconformance, that's state law, but the use of a photo from 1996, which I don't dispute its authenticity, that's actually the site, but it's a snapshot in time. It could have been in the winter when business was slow and not operational, could have been on a Sunday when they weren't open and all the equipment was inside. Same with the photograph of more recently of the current operations, could have been one day when they were busy.
These were multiple photographs, though.
There was two. I only saw two, relative from aerial photos.
Okay.
It's, Jamie, what exhibit is that? D and C.
Exhibit D is current conditions, or this was from 2023, rather?
Right. And I would just say that's one day out of the.
So that, you're saying that's the same area as the previous photograph, which did not have,
Well,
where
it's
there
the
wasn't
same.
grass?
I agree. It's the same site. Absolutely. And I agree. I don't know what the conditions are. I haven't visited myself. But the point I'm trying to make as it pertains to the photographs, that could have been a busy day in the summer where they were servicing a lot of equipment. But as it
I
pertains,
don't know if all that stuff would fit inside.
I don't know either. So,
Okay, so, but it's, I mean, it's more than just a snapshot, because there's more than just one day over the years that this
well, I don't know
area
if
was
that's more
filled.
than, I would assume that's a millisecond. It's a photograph. It's a snapshot in time, as opposed to comparing it to the following day or the following hour, or not. Things move on a moment-to-moment basis when they're
Okay.
working.
But the prepared area, the area that's prepared to house that equipment didn't exist back in the 90s.
No, it did not. And the question is whether or not they used the property for outdoor storage. And the property in the past, and the testimony I'll solicit, it was certainly used for outdoor storage, the display of equipment for sale, and they'd store equipment that they were servicing outside. Granted, they're storing more now, but the use code on its own includes outdoor storage.
Right, but you're not allowed to intensify that without a special use permit, without asking for.
Well, first, I don't think we're here for intensification. We were noticed for expansion. The findings say that it was determined that there was an expansion
Right.
of a non-conforming use, not an intensification.
Well, that's
And-
the same thing.
I disagree. They're two different sections of the ordinance, and they have different standards. I don't think they can be read. They need to be read in pari materia, but for due process concerns for the appellant, they need to be noticed that they're being violated for an intensification as opposed to an expansion. An expansion, by the reading of it, is strictly to within the structure.
Is that fair?
So let me just try to add some clarity, and of course, feel free to respond if you think I'm
Thank you.
misstating anything. So there's section 202E addresses expansion, and this is what it says. A nonconforming use may occupy any parts of a structure which were designed for such use at the time of the adoption of this ordinance. So that's the section cited. It allows you to expand within a structure so long as you are not expanding the structure itself. So then it goes on to state, A nonconforming use may expand in other ways, so a nonconforming use, which this is, may expand in other ways only if granted a special use permit under the provisions of section 203. So then, I think you need to roll down to section 203, and that's where it says, subsection A, as a special use in compliance with the provisions of Article 9 of this ordinance, the lawful nonconforming use of a building, structure, or land may be added to, enlarged, expanded, or intensified, provided that such addition, enlargement, expansion, or intensification shall not exceed 50% in excess of the existing floor area, land, or intensity used for the nonconforming use at the time the use became lawfully nonconforming. So I think you're right. It says section 202E says you can expand within an existing building. Then it says for everything else, look to 203, and 203 says for these types of expansion, including expansion on land, you can do it with a special use permit, provided you do not expand beyond 50%. So I think that's the legal structure.
Yep.
So the violation would be an expansion of a non-conforming use on the land without seeking a special use permit and going beyond 50%.
So, okay, so then it was called what, an expansion in the violation? Or
Yes.
it was, okay. So it was my misuse of the terminology by saying it was an intensification.
Right, and I think an
Okay.
intensification would be using the same area, but, you know, using it more intensely.
Okay, so my mistake. So what they're suggesting is that it was an expansion, not an intensification.
It's a
So I
term of art.
apologize.
It's a term.
Yep, I'm not a legal guy.
I live in a world
believe
of
me.
technicalities, unfortunately.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Just
I don't
bear
mean to
with
be
me,
difficult.
please. I appreciate it. Do you have something to add to this at this point? I mean, I'm sure others want to talk
Well, if
besides
anyone has
me.
any questions for me now, and then I was intending, if it's helpful to the board, to have my witness here to testify to the legal nonconformance. I think it's established that legal nonconformance exists there. I think the only question we have really is whether or not outdoor storage was in effect at the time back when, so.
To what extent it was?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so, but you're saying that it wasn't expanded, or you're saying that it never was defined?
Well, I'm
Or
saying that.
what are you saying?
There's outdoor storage is a blanket term that's inherent in the use code, and it's permitted without limitation.
Well, we were just told otherwise.
And that's just my position.
Okay, but the ordinance says in section 203, I believe, right? It's saying that the expansion, intensification, and growth within the footprint, indoor and outdoor, is.
I still disagree respectfully.
That's right.
And I think that expansion would be the expansion of the building. I think that I think that the more on point argument of utilization of more of the land would be an intensification because the use is intensifying within the land.
Right.
Outdoor storage is a blanket term that's inherent in the use code. All of the other uses within that use code are all heavily outdoor storage activities.
Sure.
So when it comes to the intent of the ordinance and to regulating the space, they said, hey, listen, use code 52 includes outdoor storage. There was never any limitation on how much outdoor storage you could have, a lumber yard, et cetera.
But you're saying they can occupy 100% of that footprint of that property with equipment?
Well, as long as it meets the law and it's not considered a change of use and the use is so substantially different from the existing use. No additional uses have come into play here. We're not repairing cars out back. We're not changing oil. We're not doing an auto body shop. It's always been a small repair shop. It's always serviced lawn mowers and snow blowers and things of that effect. I think that as it would be any unreasonable change of the use would be an intensification that would be prohibited.
So it's only use-based, not
That would be my position.
not activity-based?
Correct.
Okay.
And just because of the blanket use of outdoor storage, and I scoured the ordinance as best I could, and I couldn't find any limitations on outdoor storage.
Well, in 203, it says that it.
Well, 203, it is the requirement for any addition, enlargement, expansion, or intensification of a legal non-conforming use if it's deemed to be an expansion or intensification.
Which he says it is.
He says it is, I say it's
Okay.
not. It's
That's all right.
it's for you to decide.
No, that's fine, and
Yeah.
that's why we're here. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why you're appealing it.
Yes,
So,
sir.
all right, so board members, do you have questions of the appellant? Is that right?
I have some.
Mr. Daniels, sorry.
Directed to the building official. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we put this aside for a minute, the remedy here for the applicant is to come back for a special use permit for the expansion, am I correct?
That's correct, but based on what they currently have, they would exceed,
It would exceed the 50%.
correct,
So they would still be able to apply for a special use permit and come back here, right?
correct.
Okay.
And that was mentioned in the notice of violation at the very end, that
Right.
if they were seeking to.
Right, I just wanted to confirm that with you, okay. Secondly, Mr. Gorman, do you consider the establishment of the fence, in your order, you said the fenced enclosure constructed for the purpose of outdoor, do you consider that to be a structure?
The fence?
Yes.
No. We wouldn't issue a building permit or regulate fences on property. It's when it forms a perimeter for the expansion of the non-conforming use.
Okay, so going back to the original photograph, the fence was not there in that photograph? I didn't look real closely to see if it was there or wasn't there. No, it looks like it wasn't originally there.
It doesn't appear to be.
Okay, so having been added and constructed at a later date would not be a violation of the special use permit that was originally granted, or the non-conforming use that was originally established?
The fence itself, I would say no.
Okay. Okay, and the other question I have is the 241 Torrey Hill, is that owned by the same entity, or is it owned by somebody else?
I can double check, but I believe it's somebody else.
Okay, so can we assume that the owner has some agreement with 241 to store vehicles there, or is this a violation of storing vehicles on someone else's property?
At the time of the inspection, they appeared to be associated with the subject property, and whether or not, and it sounds like that 241 is a relative to the owners.
Okay. But it is in a residential district,
Correct, R80.
and that in and of itself is a violation, is that correct? With the storage of vehicles there without some sort of variance or special use permit, storing vehicles in a residential area?
If they're related to a commercial non-conforming use, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to add
Yes.
one last point, because it was raised about the 50% limit. Actually, this applicant has another avenue of relief even from that, whereas prior to the new laws coming into effect on January 1st, it used to allow every town to decide whether or not you could grant a variance in conjunction with a special use permit, and South Kingstown didn't allow it in most cases. After January 1st, every town must allow an applicant to apply for a variance and a special use permit. So conceivably, they could apply for a special use permit for an expansion and also apply for a variance from the 50% requirement. They'd still have to show they meet the standards, but that's something they could put forward.
That's interesting. Okay.
So, just to follow up. So there is a remedy here.
Yeah, there is.
That makes some sense and makes it not all that difficult, it would appear, for the applicant.
I think so.
And if the board would prefer, we could continue this to the next hearing and get a filing for a variance and a sup in that interim time if you allow it.
What does that do to the violation in that
Well,
timeframe?
I think the board would still have to either grant or deny the appeal. It may be a condition of,
So if we denied the appeal, meaning that we're enforcing you get to enforce the violation, what does that mean for the operations?
So if you were to overturn my decision,
Nope, if we upheld your decision. Oh, go ahead, finish it. You're probably going to tell me the answer, sorry.
then it could be conditional that they would have to, file an application for a special use permit and dimensional variance.
Within a certain time frame. Okay.
So if we upheld with the condition that they file for a special use and a variance, does that make sense? Is that a condition of our upholding the decision of the building official, or no?
You know, I think what, what might make it even easier than that is that if the applicant wanted to ask the board to allow them to withdraw without prejudice, you could make that motion with the condition that you've just noted. That way they're not going to have a denial, so conceivably they could raise the challenge later if they wanted to. And they can explore with Jamie if they can put together an application for relief that makes sense.
So if it was withdrawn, their appeal, you wouldn't, there isn't fines, penalties, or anything that would exist from the town that at this point?
No, there would not be.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Mr. Pelsier, please.
Based on the expansion of the 50%, what is kind of the standard that would be based on? Like, what historically would be looking at from the use of the building, the use of the exterior space, to calculate what a 50% expansion would encompass?
So I would use the current building footprint and then 50% beyond that for the outdoor storage. It sounds like they can seek relief beyond 50, and what's reasonable and what satisfies the board. I mean, certainly screening, potentially, concerns relative to noise, sound, any kind of vibration, smoke, things like that, taken into consideration. But I think that's up to the board and the burden of the applicant.
But Mr. Gorman, you would help the applicant determine what that 50% would be prior to them applying for the.
We could calculate that number.
Right. So there isn't a disagreement by the time they show up here as to what constitutes 50%. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Please.
Just so the record is complete, you argued earlier that it's strictly a small engine repair shop, small outdoor equipment. But when I look at the photo, I'm seeing vehicles stored, boats and whatever else stored in that area. So I'm a little confused as to what's being stored there.
Understood. And from my understanding, the additional equipment, it's a family business, and one of the sons likes to repair his stuff on the site, and I think that's what spurred the original complaint that led to the violation.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I believe that one of the family members repairs his own stuff on the property, and I believe him storing his stuff there while working and whatnot.
Stuff meaning vehicles and
I think
campers?
I think the vehicles specifically are the business vehicles. The boat obviously is not. So I would have to gain clarity exactly whose vehicles was what, but it was my understanding that it's really the managing son's personal equipment that's stored there just when he works on his own stuff. It's certainly, the operations are certainly limited to, besides the pest control, which takes up very little, and I believe they got a special use permit in the past for that. The business operations are strictly limited to small engine repair. There's no vehicle repair going on. It's sales, repair, and that's about it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Riley, what do you suggest?
What's our pleasure?
Yeah, what would you prefer?
So, I would prefer a continuance or a conditional continuance that, we get the continue this matter just to stay any potential fines or penalties, to allow us to seek leave 20 days to get a variance application and a special use permit application for your consideration, if that's okay, or a withdrawal without prejudice is equally the same, I think.
What do you suggest, Mr. Gorman?
I think maybe there may be people who want to speak in the audience, before we
Okay.
go
Okay.
too far along.
Okay. Before we suggest either at this point?
That'd be my recommendation.
Okay, sounds fine.
Fair
I'm
enough.
all right with that. You okay?
Yeah, that's fair.
Great. Thank you. Is there anyone out there that would want to speak on behalf of this petition? For or against? Doesn't matter. You can speak on your own behalf if you like, but, no, I think if everyone, all right, well, there you go. So, well, we can't withdraw it, right? No, we can only continue it?
Yeah.
We can only continue it. Okay. Continue it for 1 month. I know April is looking awful in terms of space, but, I mean, we could say just till then, or, and then if it gets, but it might, right now, they'd probably be like, what, number 8 on the list, or something like that?
So to get on the April agenda, if you're going to apply for the special use permit and dimensional variance, the deadline to file is Friday. So I don't think you would make that deadline.
So I'd aim for May. So
So-
if you could continue this matter to May and we can merge them together, or however you wish.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. Which day are we looking at on May? I appreciate you working this out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Th-
no,
thank
I
you for
think
helping.
it's much better.
Always.
That we work together on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you.
May 22nd.
May 22nd, okay. And then their filing would be essentially 5 weeks from now, that it would have to be in by?
I'll touch base with Attorney Riley tomorrow with the filing deadlines.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, board members?
No, I think that's a good solution.
Okay. Do you want me to do it? Joy. No, I'll do it.
Just a continuance.
Yeah, we're gonna, I'll make a motion to continue the petition of James and Margaret Siligato for the 4060 Tower Hill Road. We're gonna continue the matter until May 22nd of 2024. Can I get a second? Second, Mr. Rosen. Any other discussion? Cagnetta, aye. Rosen?
Aye.
Pelletier?
Aye.
Daniels? Hicks?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. So next we have the petition of Mary Beth Keating of 114 Winter Street, Wakefield, Rhode Island, 02879 for a dimensional variance under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking to construct a 22-foot by 35.5-foot addition to the existing dwelling. The addition will be located 15.8 feet from the front property line and 8.2 from the west property line. The required front yard setback is 25 feet and the required yard setback is 10 foot. Therefore, a relief of 9.2 feet and 1.8 is requested. Lot size is .33 acres. Dimensional variance is required per the zoning ordinance sections 401, Schedule of Dimensional Regulations, and section 907 are standards of relief. Owner of the property is Mary Beth Keating for premises located at 114 Winter Street, South Kingstown. Assessors map 56-3, lot 79 is zoned R10. For Winter Street, we have the application signed and dated February 9th, 2024. Owner authorization form signed and notarized February 9th, 2024. Proposed site plan, which is 1 page, prepared by East Greenwich Surveys, LLC, and stamped by Kirk D. Andrews, PLS, dated February 9th. 200-foot of butters list and radius map, legal notices, and notarized affidavit of mailing. Correspondences from Kenneth and Mary Mason, 110 Winter Street, Joshua and Christine Short of 67 Kenwood Avenue, and John Kenny and Ellen McBurney of 55 Kenwood Avenue. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for considering my application.
Absolutely.
My name's
So-
Mary Beth Keating.
Spell it for me.
Yep, Keating.
And you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Mr. Chairman, just point of order, you might want to indicate
Oh.
recusal.
Yes. So did we have to read that in, or just, no? Ms. Hicks is going to recuse herself. She's in a butter of the
Yeah.
property, so she doesn't want to have a conflict in this. So anyhow, and sir, are you going to speak as well?
I might. Sean,
You might. All right. So state and spell your name,
Sean Campbell, SeanCampbell.
and you also swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Excellent. So Ms. Keating, please.
So I am requesting the variance because we have no garage and proposing to connect a garage to the front of the house. And with that addition would come a bathroom on the first floor. And so we're seeking relief of 9.2 feet from the front property line and 1.8 feet from the west side property line. And that 1.8 foot relief is really due to the fact that the property line is a pie shape. So we just cross over a touch as we carry the roof line from the garage back to the existing structure of the house.
And so what? I noticed you're bumping in a little bit from your house. Are you about the same distance, or are you going a little bit closer than your house is?
So so what happens is by carrying the garage line back to the house, it allows for that to put a lavette, a downstairs half bath in the addition section, which I would not be able to do if I don't carry the roof line from the front to where it is now.
So coming closer to the sideline is kind of necessary for function of the space
Absolutely.
and design? Like,
Absolutely.
is there functionality to it as well?
There is, because the bump out on the left that's existing is actually a bedroom with a half bath, so the plumbing is right there. So having that bathroom abut that space is what makes the most sense.
And your roof lines are going to kind of, it works to sort of offset it a little bit more, you're saying?
It does, and I apologize. I did not submit, because I've never done this before, but I do have the plans so that you can see really just how much thought was put into the way we're
actually,
doing this, so
if
that
we could. Do you want me to mark these, Jess? Okay. Can I keep this? You can. Okay, great. What did you want this? So the garage, okay, so if I spun this all the way around, if I put it upside down, that's the direction I'm looking at. This bottom view here?
The bottom view, correct.
Yep, is from the north?
Absolutely, yeah. That's onto Winter Street in the front there.
Okay, and then, and side elevation, that is, which one is the?
You may need, sorry, I
I'll
think I
pass
have
this
one that
around
I
to you
didn't
guys.
give you.
So
you
is
want
this,
this.
the side elevation is the west? Oh, okay. Okay, so this is the, I get it, so this is the left side, okay. So that's as if we're looking at the building from the north. Got it. Okay.
And just as a
One
little
and
bit
two,
of,
Jessica, I'm sorry.
sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just a little historical perspective too. When I bought the property in 2018, I've been very conscious of the fact that it was the Dexter's home for years. It was an original dairy farm, and there's a beautiful stone wall. And I do understand that that was part of the reason that that driveway wasn't originally put out front.
Right.
And I'm very aware of actually beautifying the stone wall. Unfortunately, the tree right on the left corner of this picture, Martin Luther King, the storm, that tree cracked. I brought pictures to show you that unfortunately that beautiful stone wall is very much damaged at this point, and what I'm going to be proposing to do when I build the garage off the front, as the elevation shows, it comes down. The stone wall is actually going to be a continuous stone wall. The steps up there are going to come off, and that's all going to be front yard. So I'm going to be looking to improve upon that wall and put it back to,
Not that this is relevant at all, but you're going to dry lay it again, as opposed to using mortar?
absolutely,
Okay, please. Thank you.
absolutely.
That's a personal thing, and that has nothing to do with our decision.
No, I'm also very passionate about
It's
making sure
beautiful.
that yeah.
It's a beautiful wall, nicely done. All right, so that makes sense. Okay, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Another point is, since the driveway is gonna be in the front of the house, we're removing the driveway in the back.
Okay,
So the driveway in the rear of the house cuts through two of our neighbors' yards,
Okay.
which disrupts them. So we're going to, get rid of that garage, so it'll be backyard to backyard to backyard, so the kids can play back there and be uninterrupted by any cars that may come up the back side of the house.
and it's technically not a curb per se, so you're not really doing a curb cut or
No.
whatever. Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to add anything else?
No.
All right, board members, any questions for the applicants?
One quick one.
Mike.
The driveway that winds back from the road on the other side. Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
The driveway that winds to the back, it doesn't go to a garage, right?
We do not have a garage at this time. I haven't had a garage since I
Okay.
purchased.
And does it go over somebody else's property, that driveway?
It does not, and I'm not sure if it shows on the paperwork that you have, but no, that driveway, it runs parallel to my back neighbor's driveway, and it's a very odd, I believe in one of the letters that was written on behalf of moving the driveway, the neighbor said they felt it never should have been allowed in the first place to be put in the back and take up so much of the backyard.
Yeah, it makes for a very funky property.
It does. It does.
Are you going to be having to fill that in some way with foliage or what?
So there's always a 5-year plan to any renovation, and I would say over time, that space it'll be grassed and it will just become very natural. But at this time, I haven't really given much thought to what will come of that place, just that it won't be, once the garage is in the front, I look most forward to being able to grass like straight back from my home, so I have a full backyard. So there may be an odd-shaped swath for a little bit, but I know that I'm looking forward to having my whole backyard straight off the house.
I went and visited there, but I only was on Winter Street. I was not on the back side of it, so I didn't realize that you had a driveway back there.
Yeah,
And
off Kenwood. Mhm.
Yeah. So I was surprised that, what's the total acreage of this?
0.33.
0.33, okay.
It was subdivided, I think, in 2017 or,
Very weird, so. Thank you.
thank you. I wish I would have been able to purchase the whole thing before it got subdivided, because it was 1.3 acres and it was beautiful. And I did live on it for a little while, and I was there as the houses were built around me. So, yeah, I watched it change.
That's a shame.
Any other questions, board members? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we did get the 3 letters, as I mentioned in the records. They are positive. I don't have the third one here. I don't have the shorts. I don't know if they were also.
I only have 2.
Yeah, so, I mean, I can read these in, but they were both glowing in terms of appreciating the fact that you're making it a little more straightforward to get to your home. So, about the same in terms of, okay. So, all right, any thoughts, board members?
Do you want to ask if there's any?
Okay. Anyone out there want to speak on behalf of this petition, for or against? Nope. Okay. Sound good?
It sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone want to make a motion unless there's something that jumps out at anybody?
Nobody else will do it, I'll do it.
Please.
This is a dimensional variance, correct? I've got to get my glasses on here. Okay, I move approval of the petition of Mary Beth Keating of 114 Winter Street, Wakefield, Rhode Island, for a dimensional variance under the zoning ordinance as read into the record by the chairman. At the meeting, Ms. Mary Beth Keating and a Sean Campbell, is that correct? Appeared before us and explained what they were doing with respect to building a garage and a short driveway and adding a small bathroom to the existing structure as is. There were no people to speak for or against, although there were 3 letters of praise with respect to what Ms. Keating was doing with the property, and the materials that were presented were read into the record by the chair as well. The board finds that the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure and not the general characteristics of the surrounding area, and is not due to the physical or economic disability of the applicant, excepting those physical disabilities addressed in 45-2430, paren 16. All she simply is doing is adding a garage, which she doesn't presently have on the property, a driveway, and constructing a bathroom, a new bathroom within the structure itself. The board finds that the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant because she's lived in the house for a while. There is a rather strange driveway that is part of the property, which she's going to rectify. She's going to have to also do something about the wall, the stone wall that is in front of the property, and so she's beautifying the property so that it fits in with the character of the neighborhood. The board finds that the granting of the requested variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or comprehensive plan upon which the ordinance is based. She's simply beautifying her property and staying within the confines, except for a few feet with respect to the front of the property and the west side of the property. The board finds that the hardship suffered by the owner of the subject property, if the dimensional variance is not granted, amounts to more than a mere inconvenience, meaning that relief sought is minimal to a reasonable enjoyment of the permitted use to which the property is proposed to be devoted. And as a result, I move approval of this petition.
Okay. Motion was made by Mr. Rosen. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Daniels. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Rosen?
Aye.
Mr. Daniels? Ms. Hicks?
No, she's
Oh,
not here.
jeez. Mr. Ilia? Mr. Pelletier?
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta, aye. Motion passes. Good luck. Just hear your voice and no.
No.
Next is the petition of Jeffrey Scott Hansen Jr. of 84 Estelle Drive, West Kingston, Rhode Island, 02879, for a special use permit under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking a special use permit to allow 4 unrelated individuals to occupy the existing dwelling. Lot size is 1.12 acres. A special use permit is required per the zoning ordinance section 504.14, household occupants more than 3 unrelated individuals. And section 907 are standards of relief. Owners of the property are Jeffrey S. and Sarah M. Hansen for premises located at 128 Estelle Drive, South Kingstown. Assessors map 14, lot 38, and is zoned R80. We have some documents, so just bear with me. We have the application signed and dated February 9th, 2024. Owner authorization form signed and notarized February 9th. Development plan review, 2 pages, granted January 23rd, 2024, and recorded in the South Kingstown Land Evidence on January 24th, 2024, book 1873, and pages 589 to 590. Blank lease agreement, which is 14 pages, certificate of conformance with site drawings, inspection report, and OWTS permit application of 11 pages, dated March 21st, 2002, parking diagram of 1 page, contact information letter of 1 page, first and second floor and basement floor plan 3 pages, and photos of 9 pages. 200-foot abutters list and radius map, legal notices, and notarized affidavit of mailing. And then we have 6 correspondences by Chelsea Huddock of 116 Estelle Drive, Caleb Goodhouse of 138 Estelle, Diana and Philip Clark of 47 Estelle, Benjamin Cray of 128 100 Acre Pond, Karen Markin of 129 100 Acre Pond, and Dennis and Jan McLeavely at 128 Estelle Drive. And good evening. And you guys are. Hi. There you go.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Sarah Hanson, SARAHANSON.
Okay. And you are?
I'm Jeffrey Hanson, JEFFREYHANSON.
And you guys both swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Yes, sir. Okay, excellent. So I just want to spend a minute with the attorney just to talk about why we're here, right? Just to clarify everything you guys have been through, so we all have a good understanding of what our role is in this step.
Yes, sir.
All right? There's a few things on this, right? So one is that if it weren't for the time of their application, well, if they applied today, the new laws would mean that they wouldn't have to be here because they already went through, correct?
That's correct. If they were to apply today, they could get what's called Unified Development Plan Review. So now, because of when they applied, they went to the planning board, they got a positive recommendation on this application, and under the new law, that would be enough. The planning board could approve it. Because of when they applied, they now need to come to the zoning board and get a vote in favor of the special use permit as well.
Right, okay. So not to say that should change, but it is sort of a wrinkle in the, not a wrinkle, but it's a new, and then it's also, this also has a sunset on it, right? So this is only good for a certain amount of time, this special use?
That's correct. It's a 3-year period, and
Okay.
they can reapply afterwards, but so it will basically, it allows the community to see what type of neighbor they're being.
Right.
And
So it's conditional,
Right.
and that's set in stone. That's not even a recommendation by the planning department, but that's just part of this type of special use.
that's correct.
And then the other, and I think it's also important for everybody to know when we talk about the standards that they're trying to meet, that we're making sure that they're not altering the general character of the area, and that this is authorized. They can expand it. So really the criteria that we're looking at for this is egress, off-street parking, trash storage, those sort of things, right?
Right, and there are a number of specific standards. I think there's a list of 10. I'd imagine since they haven't put in their application that they're seeking relief from any of those, they can comply with all of them.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that those are almost like conditions of what they're going to have to do when they get approval.
But it's a little different than a dimensional variance. I mean, we're looking at different criteria in terms
Right.
of their burden.
Yes,
to
so
meet.
I think it's a lesser burden in that they don't need to show a hardship. They just need to show that it's permitted under the ordinance, which it is, and that they meet the standards in order to satisfy the way you have to conduct the use.
Okay, great, thank you. So, setting that up, what would you guys like to do?
Well, we were just going to do a little intro about ourselves and what we were trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
If that's okay.
Please.
So we live on 84 Estelle Drive, and we are seeking the permit for 128 Estelle Drive. We're only 2 houses down. We have 2 kids. This is our family neighborhood. So we purchased the property during the summer because his parents and his 2 brothers both live across the country. So we were hoping that they would have a place to stay over the summer to spend more time with us. So that was the basic reason why we purchased it. And then obviously to help cover costs, we would like to also house the students in the house during the semesters.
Mhm.
So we have had very good experiences with landlords ourselves. When we
As a
were-
landlord, or just being,
No,
oh, okay,
having landlords.
sure.
We were in the International Engineering Program at URI, so we went to Germany for a year where we were obviously, we had no family there, nobody to rely on, and so our landlords at the time acted as kind of second parents to us, and they helped us out a lot and supported us. And that's kind of what we want to offer students in our house as well.
Mhm.
And we've had some students in our own house, just in a bedroom, and we've created amazing relationships with them. They've come to mean a lot to my kids, and I would like to help students with, professional goals. We're both engineers, so we always welcome speaking with them. So that's kind of our motive. We're not trying to, buy up the neighborhood or anything.
And it's currently a 4-bedroom house?
The septic tank supports 4 bedrooms.
Yes.
Okay, it supports 4, but, I mean, I don't remember a floor plan in here, but,
There are 5.
There are
but
5 bedrooms,
since it's a
but-
4-bedroom, we can only do 4.
okay, okay.
Anything you wanted to add? Well, so again, we don't think that it's going to, increasing the occupancy from 3 to 4 tenants will not detract from the neighborhood's integrity. We are very active and invested in our neighborhood and with our students in the house right now. We've built a lot of relationships with them, even in the short time they've been there. And we always make sure that the house is, up to standards of the neighborhood. And, going over there and taking care of all of the lawn and the leaves, all of the good stuff. So,
And you guys know that this is conditional only for 3 years?
yes.
Okay. Okay, so you guys you said you're right down the street, so 84 to,
Yeah, there's-
84 to 128?
One house in between us.
move this just south of it, we're 84 right there.
Oh, okay,
It's less than a walk away.
okay,
I would say I'm over there every other day,
Right.
just saying hello.
okay. All right, board members, questions for the applicants?
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
So you're currently renting to 3 individuals unrelated, is that correct?
It's actually 4.
You're renting to 4 now?
Mhm.
How's that work?
Mr. Vice Chair, if I could interject. So, a little bit of backstory. My office received a complaint. I don't have the exact date, but we investigated that complaint, and a notice of violation was issued based on 4 unrelated individuals residing here. To abate the violation was to go through the process, because they were bedrooms, there wasn't any unsafe condition. It was just a matter of, to abate the notice of violation was to go before the planning board as well as the zoning board to seek the special use permit. So that was really what triggered this application.
Okay, so you dealt with it administratively is what we're saying?
Initially, probably.
There was no violation in your judgment?
Well, there is a violation And the remedy for that was to apply for the
Okay.
special use permit.
Okay, very good. So you're renting to 4 individuals unrelated. I assume that those rentals are late August to early May?
Early May.
Early,
That's what he
is
said.
that basically
Uh,
correct?
Early September to early May.
Or early September to early May when students leave, kind of thing? And was it your testimony, or did I read in your application that your family uses it in the summer months, correct?
That's the plan. We bought it this August.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not intending to rent it during the summer months? Okay. So how long have you been renting to 4 individuals? Is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Since September.
Since this past September?
Yeah.
Okay. Any violations safety-wise, police actions, complaints, anything on the record?
Just the complaint he mentioned, and that involved the police because it was a party.
I'm sorry, I can't hear your testimony.
There was a party, September 15th, that we told them to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a public safety response to that, based on a complaint? Okay. Any other complaints during the course of the year?
Not since then, no.
No.
Okay. That's,
Okay. Any other board members' questions? Mr. Rosen?
Are the students renting in there right now?
Yes,
Are they undergraduates or graduate students?
they're currently graduates.
Graduates?
Undergraduates, I'm sorry.
Okay. And it's essentially a 9-month rental, correct?
Yes,
And if I might ask, are you charging the amount that you suggest in the lease here?
Mm-hmm.
yes, sir.
Okay. Are those students under 21?
I don't know. They're juniors mostly, so if they're turning 21, it's this year.
It's a mix of students, so some of them are more than 21, some of them are less than 21.
You mentioned that you had students living in the house at 84.
That is our domicile as well, yes, sir.
Yeah. And how long has that been going on?
We don't know the exact day.
Yeah.
You don't know how long you've had
Well,
students?
it's been a year maybe.
2 years, maybe?
How long have you owned that house?
Since 2020.
And have you always had students in there from the very beginning, or was it
No.
after the pandemic, or what?
It was after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've had good experience with those students, and you've had reasonably good experience with the students that are at 128,
Yes, sir.
correct? Okay. That's it.
Mr. Rosen? Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
sure, Mr.
The
Davis.
planning board, in their development and review, had 10 specific conditions. Are you okay with those conditions? Do you intend to follow those conditions, no issue with them?
Yes, sir. I'll be honest with you, I forget what they were exactly at this moment, but when I looked at them, I was fine with them, yes.
There was also some specific requirements as to the type of lease. Do you have that type of lease that they suggested or ordered in place now?
Yes, so if there were differences from the lease that we have provided and what they requested, it's just because we haven't updated it as of yet. Like, if there were requirements that they put in, these 10 requirements to have something worded in the lease specifically, we just have not submitted another thing.
But there were a list of 10
Is this
about the occupants and their how they behave and several other
Yep.
conditions. You have no problem in maintaining those conditions and making sure they're complied with?
No problems. We intend to keep all 10 of those, yes, sir.
Okay.
I do have one more.
Good, Mr. Rosen.
There are 5 parking places on that property?
What What does the map show? I honestly forget.
It showed 5. I'm just asking, were there 5 cars there?
No, so we were asked to outline the areas where they could park that did not park each other in. So we identified all of the parking spots that had the appropriate sizing and allowances of room for the other cars to be able to get out.
And have you noticed when they have visitors, those people park on the street?
No, there's about 6 spaces of overflow within the parking.
Oh, really? 6 spaces?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of space.
It's a big driveway. It's a
Okay.
pain to shovel.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. And
Sure.
Okay, my
Six.
question may be more for our legal counsel this evening. In doing some research, I find that there is a package of bills currently going through the Rhode Island legislature. Many of them would ease the restrictions around housing. And one in particular, it's H7382, would raise the cap from 3 to 5, or for bigger houses, to the number of bedrooms. Obviously, the session is not over right now, but should this pass, is all of this for naught? Because no matter what we say, if the legislature passes, they can have 5 people in their house without needing to come to us or the planning board, or, and so can every other landlord in South Kingstown and Rhode Island.
That is absolutely correct. So if it passes, which it hasn't yet, then they could have, depending on what the final bill says, up to 5 or whatever the General Assembly decides on. As of right, it would mean this special use permit application is moot, and then 3 years from now, when they would need to reapply if that didn't get passed, they wouldn't need to apply at that point. But for now, since they have this plan to rent moving forward, and that bill isn't the law, this is the process they'd have to go through.
Okay, so just proceed this evening as if that legislation doesn't exist right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Julia, go ahead.
Quick question, the students that are living in the residence now, were these students you've entertained before or housed before, or are these new rentals?
New.
New. And when did when did this lease start presently?
September.
Yeah,
What exact date?
I'd have to
3rd,
look.
4th.
So the 4th, and on the 21st, there was a party where the authorities were called? So they weren't there more than 3 weeks, and there was already an issue for your neighbors, correct?
There hasn't been an issue since we talked to them.
Okay, but they were there 3 weeks and there was an issue, so, okay, thank you. And there's 4 people living there now?
Yes, sir.
And the party only involved 1 student from the house.
Okay. And in your lease, you suggest that there is no street parking longer than 3 hours. Is there a designated time in those 3 hours, or just is it continuous?
Could you clarify what you mean?
Is there a time frame of 3 hours? Is it 3 continual hours or 3 collective hours?
We don't specify. I mean, what I meant was 3 straight hours, but I didn't specify.
Okay. No further questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chelsea. Elio, any other questions, board members? No? Okay, do you guys want to add anything else for now? You can come back up after we're going to ask what folks think, but if there's anything you want to add for now?
Not for right now.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have a number of folks here that did send in letters. I also know some folks are also out there, so of the 6 that I mentioned before, is there anyone that's here? You guys are here. Okay, so 2 of you. Okay. So why don't you come up first? Did you guys want to speak, or did you want your letters to speak for you? Because I can read these into the record, and if you want to speak, please, come on up.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
To us, but first I'll just state your name and spell it, please.
Yes, Dennis McLevy, M-C-L-E-A, V as in Victor, E-Y. And what you read
Well,
earlier...
do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Excellent. So go ahead.
So earlier when you mentioned my address, you said 128, and my wife and I are at 121. So I just want to correct that.
Okay. 121, yes, you are. I misspoke. There is, yes. It is
Okay.
correct.
And I guess I should preface this by saying that I tend to follow the law and the existing law now, not what might be promulgated in the future. And
as do we.
And the property was advertised at URI in September for 4 students, which was a violation. So that's been a violation.
Yep, which there was, they were notified of that violation.
Okay, and
Yep.
so if if this were approved, how do we know it doesn't go to 5 students or to 6 students if the new law says 5? So I'm just a little concerned about that, but the main point I'd like to make is that I've read section 504. The purpose of this is to keep the way the community currently is. And section 907 talks about that the beneficial use of the property. The main point here, I think, is to earn some income from rentals.
Okay, which they have the right to do that.
They have the right to do that. And they are currently they currently have the right for 3.
Correct.
So they have a beneficial use regardless of whether.
But that's not a condition of the special use permit.
No, it's not, but.
Or a limitation of it, so.
If they're required to conform to conform to 3.
Right.
They still have beneficial use.
As a 3? Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So we're really only discussing an additional income.
Well, no, not for us. The only issue is the fact that they're asking for 4. The amount of money they make is irrelevant. They can make $1 million a month. Really, it's all about how many people they're allowed under the ordinance.
Right, but what's the purpose of having 4 rather than 3? It's to be able to mentor an additional student, or is it to get some rental income?
It sounds like that they have the space for it, because there's technically 5 bedrooms, but there are 4 that are allowed by the septic, so that's why they're asking for 4. Because the house can fit it.
Okay, so I guess my first question is it permissible to have speed bumps? Will the town put in speed bumps on our road?
That's not us. That would be the town, the Public Works. We wouldn't have any ability to.
And there's no that has nothing to do with zoning. In other words, if we went to the town could install speed bumps. There's no.
I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any speed bumps in town, but you can certainly ask them to do anything you like. Yep.
Is there any regulation against speed bumps?
I'm not sure. That's not for us.
Okay. And I think you answered a question, which is that this variance doesn't go with the house.
Well, it's in place for 3 years, so if they sold the house, it would still be in place. Within that, if they sold in a year, for 2 years after that, it would still be in place.
Right, so the sunset is 3 years, okay.
Yep,
so
doesn't matter who owns it.
Right, so that's really a good answer to our, to one of our concerns. The main concern we have is that we don't want a multiplier effect. In other words, so we're on our road, which you can see there, is basically a downhill road. So you start at the top, and so for example, 128 is above 84 where they live. 128 is further up the hill. It's a windy hill. So what happens is that I think there are some rentals at the top of the hill. They have rentals now which are across from us. And then they're down at the bottom of the hill, across from 100 Acre Pond, there are some other rentals. So if this variance goes, presumably the other folks will want to do this, so there's a multiplier effect, right? In other words...
But each petition would stand on its own. Just because we approve one doesn't mean we'd approve everyone. We don't have to.
On what grounds could you reject one if you've already approved?
It's all based on if they met their burden, which is which are the conditions that I said at the beginning that they have to prove.
Well, it was impressive, the number of conditions they have to go through, so that's good. Now,
well, that's just for the special use we have conditions, but then the planning board also put in their own level of oversight or expectations to control the site.
Right. Well, so one of the major issues with, I think it's section 504, is about health and safety. And am I able now to ask that my letter be entered?
It is entered. It is part of the record. Yep.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure because the police part was in my letter, so that should be understood.
Yep.
But our problem is mainly the safety that, you know, if you have we already have students, and I don't know if you realize that not all URI students, but some drive at high speeds.
Sure. Not even just students, but yes.
If you start on a windy road and you're coming downhill, my wife said yesterday she came out of our parking lot, which is further down from where this rental is, further down from 128. She came out and a car came racing down behind her and bumper to bumper. And my wife, sometimes being a little bit, let's just say, she has a mind of her own. She said, the heck with it, I'm not going to speed up just because this person is trying to race down the hill.
Sure.
So my question is, how does expanding to 4 meet the safety conditions?
Well, how does it not? I guess is part of it. I mean, if you already have 10 or 12 students on that street, 13 will break it?
Well, we are not allowed to ask questions of...
Well, you can ask it of us, and then we would ask them.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm probably taking up too much time, so you can ask me to sit down. But I would like you to ask we like our neighbors, Jack and Sarah.
Sure.
I'd like you to ask them to think about having, one more student might be the student that is racing and kills one of the children on the road. Jack and Sarah have children.
Sure.
So I'd like to ask them to withdraw their application simply because of the safety concerns.
Okay.
I mean, we'd like to even be able to cross our road from our driveway. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, wait, board members, do you have any questions of Mr. McClure?
I just wanted to inquire, have you have the opportunity to read the planning board's decision and their criteria in recommending approval for this? Have you had a chance to read the planning board's?
I read section 907.
No, the planning board's decision, which is about 50 pages.
I didn't receive that. Can I ask another question then?
Sure. Sure.
I mean, I would have read the planning board decision if we had received it, but
Sure.
the only thing I received was a notice of the public hearing.
Right. All the records associated with the application are on file with the building department. And the reason I ask that is because the planning board's decision points out 10 specific criteria that this applicant must meet in their opinion. And that opinion is forwarded to us with a favorable recommendation. So I think maybe if you have the opportunity to read those 10 criteria and restrictions in some cases, then some of your questions and your concerns may be answered.
But how did the planning board factor in amelioration of safety issues with?
So you know what? I'd be happy to, if you don't mind, I'll read it. I'll read the
Okay.
findings, which will help everybody out, I think.
Thank you.
Okay. So, so the motion was that they found, that they granted the development plan, basically, which is the package that we have here. And they had 5 findings of fact that they, in particular, they say granting of the approval will not result in the conditions inimical to the public health, safety, and welfare. So they didn't feel that it was going to affect the safety. And the conditions of approval, they said the development shall occur in strict conformance with the plans and specifications submitted in support of the application. So basically, all the plans that they submitted, they have to follow by law. And if they found to be in violation of that, then they'll have a violation by the zoning official, which would then slap what? What would happen to them, Mr. Gorman?
Potential fines.
Okay, so, and they would have to cease for whatever it is that caused the violation. So everything that they put in this package in terms of parking, in terms of how many people are living in the house, in terms of people parking on the street, and it seems like that it's just a random amount of hours that they can't park on the street, but it could be from 1 to 5 in the morning, or, you know. Your mic's not on, but.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I've seen parking restrictions that keep parking restrictions from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., so it keeps overnight.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, on-street parking is allowed in South Kingstown, where it's allowed.
Exactly. This is a town road, and there's no parking restrictions on the books currently.
Okay. Ms. Hicks? Oh, no, she's handing them out. She's handing them out. It's all right. I think it's important that we because, you know, this is also the basis of our discussion and you know, what Mr. Daniels was suggesting, or was saying. Then the second is that there should be a single lease with a single rent covering the entire building signed by all the occupants. So they're basically saying that they don't want anyone jumping in and out. So whoever's signing that lease has to be there. Anyone else that's there and staying there that's not on the lease is in a violation of the conditions of this approval. That all occupants shall jointly and severably be responsible for the payment of rent, damage to the premises, and compliance with all the terms. So nobody's getting off if something happens. Basically is what they're saying. The lease shall not prohibit subletting of any kind, subletting of any kind, including but not limited to the subletting of the rooms. So like I said, it's just the people who sign it are the ones that have to be there. Parking areas shall be the exclusive use of occupants and guests. No parking spaces or areas shall be rented, leased, or otherwise approval for the use of non-occupants. Parking shall be limited to no more than 4 cars at any one time. Parking may occur as shown in the approved site plan. So they're basically putting conditions that they don't want to have any excess cars, any other vehicles, or you can't have boats, you can't have RVs, you can't have anything that, just the, well, am I right? Can they have boats and RVs, technically? Okay. So you can't call for that. There are no waivers have been requested. Parking areas must comply by the landscape standards set forth in the town subdivision and land development regulations. I think that's just basically saying you can't park anywhere you want on your lawn. Right? Is that basically? Okay. So individual keyed locks on any interior doors should not be allowed, with the exception that the owner installed keyed locks in room areas that are not intended to be used by the rental occupants, like any storage or furnace rooms. So basically, they basically don't want it to be a rooming house. So they want one key, get in the house. Everybody has use of the house. No more than 2 guests shall be permitted on the property at any one time, in addition to the total number of individuals on the property at any given time. Shall not exceed 7 people. So basically, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. No public or private events shall be held on site where the general public is either an invited guest or a general guest of the lessee. Overnight accommodations, rentals shall be limited to 4 people, except for the primary lessee's renter and other guests may stay inside the home for no more than 2 nights within a 30-day period. All rental occupants' guests shall be limited to the 4 bedrooms shown on the plans. So there should be some consistency to the people that are there. Property owners shall install a lock box for fire and EMS to access the dwelling, including each separate floor. So that is the conditions. And one sec. And then they say that is coming to the planning board hereby provides a favorable recommendation to the zoning board of review on the special use permit. So that, and I think that's what Jessica kind of handed out to everybody just now. Did you want to speak? Did you want to mention something on behalf of this? Yeah, please, come back up.
So when was the violation recorded?
I can get you that information.
Okay.
When the notice of violation was sent, if you give me a minute.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it was late September that the party happened, I would assume that it's early October. That would be my assumption, early October.
So how long would it take for, if there was a violation of any of these 10, then it would go to some kind of fine?
Well, just as you witnessed, our first case here was a violation per the zoning enforcement officer. So typically, they would have, a couple months to kind of respond to it, and then they can appeal it. So then they can continue it. So it could be 5 or 6 months.
So if all of these 10 are there, what was the purpose of what was the purpose of 3 in section 504? Why was it set at 3?
What do you mean? Set at 3. Why? I don't know. I mean, why the town council would have deliberated that, I would assume.
I can give it a little bit of a background.
Oh, sure.
So basically, state law now sets 3 as the floor, in that a municipality cannot prevent unrelated people from living together until they're more than 3.
I got it.
Then a long time, and for some time, it was at 3, just because it was the default in town. I think at some point the council decided that they wanted to offer some type of relief for people that want to have an addition over 3. That's why they made the special use permit. So it is a permitted use by special use permit, just to ensure that they comply with the standards set out by the council, and that the board can impose any conditions.
And the standards set by the council, or is that part of these conditions of approval, or
Right.
is that separate?
So they're set out in 504.14B, and that has things like 330 square feet of gross floor area per person. Restricts the amount of people that can be in the bedrooms. They comply with those.
Right.
So because they meet those standards, they can apply to you for the permit.
Okay. Anybody else out there want to speak on behalf? Come on up.
My name is Philip with 2 L's, and the last name is Clark, C-L-A-R-K, and I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Excellent. So please go ahead, Mr. Clark.
I think I'm in a meeting where this is a moot issue in terms of the request for 4 unrelated people, from my understanding of the discussion. So some of the quality of life concerns that I wanted to raise in terms of opposing the increase to 4 unrelated residents may be no longer relevant, but I feel like I have to present a safety and quality of life concern, and I think I'm in the wrong meeting. But this is a moral concern related in part to our neighbors, the McLeavys. Public safety must be an issue when you have students living in a residence like this. And I can tell you that this has been a major problem on our street. With people walking, with children, and myself with my dog, I've had to jump out of the way for students coming bombing down the street. And if this is not your responsibility, then it's got to be somebody's responsibility, or someone is going to get killed. I had a couple of days ago, I was walking on the street, and one of the students renting the house came bombing up in a Beamer, and I had to literally jump out of the way with my dog so I wouldn't get hit. So this decision is not based on the behavior of the students. It's simply based on factual information that you're describing. But I would suggest that that's not sufficient for people who live in the neighborhood in terms of being assured about safety concerns. So I think I'm in the wrong board meeting, but I want to say this because I came tonight to have my voice heard.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you really going to the State House at this point would be a bigger sort of impact?
Well, we are aware of that, and so I feel like I came unnecessarily, but I felt like I came anyway. I should at least say what I wanted to say. So thank you.
No, not unnecessary. I really appreciate you coming. Thank you. Any board members, any questions for this gentleman?
If I may, sir, I appreciate your comments, but I just wanted to ask you, what would the difference be if 4 related brothers rented up the street and they happened to drive fast? Would there be any difference between that and students renting in the same? I'm confused about how you make the distinction that only students are subject to speeding down the hill. Suppose, take my example for instance. 4 brothers, they rent from these people, they like to drive fast, they have fast cars, and they drive fast down the street. What's the difference? They're allowed to rent to four related people. That's allowable. They don't have to be here.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Anyone else out there want to speak on behalf? No? So there are 4 other correspondences. Mr. Cray of 128 Hundred Acre Pond had similar concerns about traffic and being rarely monitored and so forth. So they are concerned about safety. So I think, limiting the amount of vehicles, I guess that's one aspect of less people in the house.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I just might want to add, though, that being a town road, certainly if there's any, habitual speeders, they could contact the chief of police or the South Kingstown Police Department, and they'll set up whether it be a sign or somebody with radar. Right. So any town road.
I figured it'd be easy pickings pretty much anywhere in South Kingstown. You can just set up anywhere. But I think, yes, especially on these smaller roads, it's an issue. I agree. So this Karen Markin of 100 Acre Pond as well, 128. They're also concerned about traffic, and apparently it is pretty bad with the amount of people driving really fast. I know because they're mentioning walking dogs. And then Caleb Goodhouse of, I'm not sure where they're. They were at 138, so they're right next door, I would assume, since the numbers jump a lot. They've been living there for 4 years, and it's a nice, peaceful, quiet spot. His wife has migraines, which is awful. I'm sorry, that stinks. So they're concerned about noise and sort of any disturbances that, and also trash that they're concerned about. And traffic is also a concern. So the last one is Chelsea Huddock, I'm sorry, 116. They say that Mr. and Mrs. Hanson have been excellent landlords, that welcome any, that there was a loud disturbance when renters hosted a party and more people than expected attended. Mr. and Mrs. Hanson immediately addressed the concern with their tenants, apologized to the neighbors, and renters have been respectful ever since. They realize that there's a concern of driving speeds, but that's been a concern long before the tenants arrived. So this is an independent issue that should be addressed separately. They're confident that the resident neighbors and Mr. and Mrs. Hanson are aware of the concerns related to their tenants, that they will welcome any feedback and swiftly address it. Have no objection to the increase from 3 to 4. So I see no effect of increasing by one individual. Would prefer request the number of tenants to be consistent with the number of people who would typically occupy a single-family home. The limit seems arbitrary in my opinion, and all it takes is one bad grape in a bunch, but I assure you that the subject would pluck out and discard. They're doing grape analogies. So that they were the bad grape that would get rid of them, basically. So, okay, so, I mean, obviously speed is an issue on the street. So is there anyone else out there? Yeah, please come back up, and then we'll make sure that we've asked any questions we need to.
So I guess I have to look at the Four Brothers case and ask, are all of you reading all of the letters before this meeting, or do you read them? So you do?
We got that. Well, some of these were received only 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago. So, but yes,
that was the
we get it
deadline.
with our package, and we
Okay.
review the applications.
So did you read the YMCA report?
The YMCA report that was part of this package?
Excuse me, who asked me whether I read the Town of South Kingstown Planning Department report?
Oh, the findings of fact.
I asked you if you read that report.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've given you a copy, right?
Right, so did you read the?
Yes, I did.
So what did the YMCA report say?
The planning department?
No, you said that you read our letters before you come to this meeting. So I'm asking about the YMCA report.
I read the letter. I did not read the report, but I read the letter in which it was attached to. I did not read.
What did the
you can fill me in on the report if you'd like.
What did the quote say? The quote from the YMCA report?
I did not read that. I'm sorry. I read the letter in which the reference was made to the YMCA report. I did not read that, but you can tell me what it says.
Was that YMCA report submitted with the application?
Mr. Chairman, it was a hyperlink in the letter.
Oh, it was a link. Then no.
And what about the quote in the letter?
Okay. Well, tell us what the quote is, unless you want me to try.
I'd like you to read it, please, because apparently there are, I think from a legal point of view, there could be amelioration, which is given in the
whose letter?
My letter.
Okay.
If I can read it if you want.
So So really that without someone here to refute or support that report, it really isn't.
So
I mean-
participants felt that less than 40% of the town utilizes street safety measures to support walking and biking, such as traffic calming, speed bumps, road narrowing, and crosswalk counters.
Okay, so that has nothing to do with this board. I'm sorry, like, we don't have any ability to change any of those conditions. By even if, we can't even have it as like a condition of approval for people to slow down.
Right. The only association with, and also part of my letter mentions, ours is not the only neighborhood affected, not by Four Brothers, but by
Right.
URI students. For example,
But
North.
we're only talking about this house and
I get
that people, so I'm not, this is not a place for us to try to make other
Yep,
cases.
I
So-
get it, but I just wanted to respond to the Four Brothers issue.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Nope, just want to make sure everybody else out there is, the Hansons, do you guys want to say anything else? Do you want to, any follow-up or anything? You don't have to, I'm just making sure before I'm just going to start polling the board, and we'll basically kind of close it to the public comment, so. Okay. Someone want to go first, or you want me to go around the room? Ms. Hicks?
Can I just, to clarify, the Hansons really are not adding a fourth person. The fourth person is currently there, correct? What they're
Yes.
trying to do is remedy a violation. But as far as, we're not adding another driver to the street currently. Am I correct on that?
It's a four-bedroom, legal four-bedroom house,
Yeah.
so.
But the fourth person lives there now. Okay, so I'm looking at it as somebody who had children who went off to college. If we did not approve the special use permit today, would the fourth person have to move out in March?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, the school year ends in May. Where does that person go? You know, realistically, where does the person go?
And I think that with the notice of violation that was issued, I mean, the town's not in the business of evicting if there's no life safety, such as, you know, this is a four-bedroom. If there were 8 people living in this house, or 9, that would be a different story. But to remedy it, they're going through the proper process and meet those standards.
Okay, so my thought is, and with the impending, perhaps, legislation that's right now at the State House, is there any way we could issue the special use permit, but only through, say, June 30th, and kind of wait out what's going to happen at the state level? And then if they wanted to rent the house next year to more than 3 people, if the legislation didn't pass, could they then come back for the 3-year special use permit?
So I guess what I would advise is that I know that this started because of an enforcement issue, but it hasn't been brought to you on appeal, so you're really not before you on the enforcement. As far as the possibility of new laws from the General Assembly, you really just need to look at it as what's the law now. And so what I would do is look at the application based on the materials they've submitted to you of whether they comply with the special use permit. And if they do, in your opinion, then it should be granted. And if you find that it doesn't, then you know, you could deny it. But as far as the period of time that it would last for, I think by the ordinance it has to be for a 3-year period.
And I think it might be tough for them to actually submit and go through the process and have it ready by September.
So,
It's the only challenge. No, it
yeah.
makes sense. I appreciate that. I'll let others speak first. So, you want to add something? Anything else? No. Mr. Elia?
I agree what you're saying, but I'm not sure the timing would work, because I think that would be a disadvantage to them when they're trying to find renters in June and July when they won't know until September. So I think that would be a disadvantage to them as potential landlords.
But how do you feel about it otherwise? Are you okay with the idea of them going to 4?
I don't have any problem with that. I think the restrictions that put in place protect some of the residents, that if they feel as though they're violated, they have a mechanism to dispute that.
Okay. Mr. Peltier, what do you think?
I've got a small child at home too, and we live in a nice neighborhood, and you know, people that drive too fast and are reckless with their cars, age isn't a restriction. So I don't think this is something that, whether there's a college kid or not living there, bad drivers are of all age. And being as the property can accommodate 4, I don't see an issue with this.
Mr. Rosen?
Let me clarify something for Mr. McLeavy, who used to be Professor McLeavy, I believe. Several years ago, I was having this problem in our neighborhood of speeders, and I went before the town council and asked for speed bumps, and received a very chilly reception. Apparently, the town does not want to add speed bumps to any of the streets here. And it's been that way ever since, and the problem still is there with people driving too fast through our neighborhood. So I'm sympathetic to what you're saying. I believe we all are sympathetic to that. There's problems in this town with speeders all around. And it's not just around the university, it's all kinds of places. So I don't see that I will vote for approval of this special use permit.
Okay. Well, I agree. I mean, I think I think the conditions are good. I mean, I think it's, some of them I do think that it's a little tough to enforce. I mean, I think it's hard to know if everybody has signed the lease together. And I think while we're not supposed to consider it as the person who's asking for it as the one who will forever be there, or at least in this 3-year period, there is a huge advantage to having the people you need to complain to literally 3 houses away. I think is going to enable it to have a bit more control than some of the other housing units that, I mean, I work in Providence, and I know that there's 30 landlords or one landlord for 30 buildings, and it's a lot harder to control. So I think in this case, there's an opportunity to sort of have some oversight of the property that you normally wouldn't have the ability to respond to. And I think also the sunset of 3 years just makes it sort of real easy to say if this is successful. I mean, I don't want anyone to get hurt. I don't want to put anybody at risk. But I feel like that the conditions and the nature of the arrangement with the owners seems to be sound. So is there anyone that wants to make a motion or try? Me? So Daniels, please.
I just wanted to,
I didn't ask you, did I? Oh, jeez.
that's okay.
Sorry, Mr. Daniels, do you have any thoughts on this?
My thoughts are that the planning board's done heavy lifting here. They've put the restrictions in place that I think are appropriate. They've certainly vetted the application thoroughly, and it is going to be part of the record. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we are not here to legislate speeding and traffic regulations. We're here for one purpose only, and that is to either approve or deny a special use permit for one additional person. That's the only reason we're here. So with that, I will move that we approve the special use permit of Jeffrey and Sarah Hanson. The application was read into the record by the chairman. The individual letters, both of support and opposition, were read into the record as well. And the individuals spoke against the petition were Mr. Clark and Mr. McLary, if I have your last name proper. Sorry if I don't, but we'll correct it in the record. And the applicant spoke, of course, in favor of their request for the special use permit. The board finds that the special use is specifically authorized by this ordinance because the ordinance does allow for three non-related individuals in a residence, and there is an exception or a variance or a requirement for a special use permit if they wish to exceed that. And in this case, the applicant has chosen to take the route of a special use permit to increase the restriction from 3 to 4 unrelated individuals. And they have shown that the property in which they are requesting this special use permit does comply with the requested and the number of bedrooms that are required by ordinance to support 4 individuals that are unrelated. The board finds that the special use meets all the criteria set forth in the subsection of this ordinance authorizing the special use, once again, because the use is authorized and there is provisions under section 504 and under section 907, standards of relief, to provide the relief requested by the applicant. The board finds that the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or the intent or purpose of the ordinance or the comprehensive community plan upon which the ordinance is derived. In just expanding a little bit on that, there's already 4 unrelated individuals living in the premises subject to a violation, which is the reason that the applicants are here to clear that violation and to correct that violation by seeking approval for the 4th unrelated individual. The board finds that the planning board has sufficiently held a development plan review on this request and has established a number of criteria, 10 in count, that will be exceptions that will be part of this decision. They've also provided specific agreements which need to be executed in terms of lease agreements and other related documents. And the planning board has, I should point out, the planning board has issued a favorable decision and asking us to approve that favorable decision as is part of our purview of this process. There is no additional criteria for ingress and egress to the lot. Parking places have been outlined. Both standard parking and overflow parking have been presented as part of the application by the applicant and are made part of the record. So the off-street parking has been addressed. There are no criteria that's been established that would change anything on trash storage or delivery areas. Utilities are all in place. There's no change to the utilities on the property. There is no requirement for screening and buffering that doesn't already exist. There are no signs or exterior lighting on the property. And there is no other requirement for open space or for additional yard requirement. Certainly this is in general compatibility with the same or abutting zoning districts. It is a residential area, and as such, the owners are entitled to rent their property as they see fit under the ordinance that's established by the town of South Kingstown. And once again, the approval is subject to the conditions that are outlined in the planning board decision. And with that, I move passage, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rosen. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Daniels? Mr. Rosen?
Aye.
Mrs. Hicks?
Aye.
Mr. Ilya? Nope, I'm sorry. Mr. Peltier? Sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta, aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Good luck.
We take a recess. We take a recess.
Yep, so let's just take like 5 minutes, I know, and we'll get to you guys, just so we can get a little break.
Pawtucket. Yeah, so I got a little bit of a ride, but that's okay. Our office is in Johnston. So actually, I came from Johnston. I'm going back to Pawtucket, I should say.
You don't have to go over the bridge.
No. No. Thankfully.
Play golf?
I do.
Play out of Pawtucket?
I don't belong, but I play with people. I don't belong anyway. I play wherever someone will have me.
Yeah. I play down here at Meadowbrook.
Yeah.
Thursday nights.
Nice.
Nice track. So what was the best score on the math quiz today?
We don't know yet. Mr. H took them home to assess them and get back to us.
Did he? I was gonna come to the meeting and just take the test with you guys.
He gave you a shout out for having already done so.
I says, if I'm gonna be the numbers guy, I might as well do some numbers. Stand behind what I can do.
Our middle school math teacher made the whole staff take the same multiplication timed quiz that he's having his students take right now.
That's great.
At a staff meeting. And then everybody had to hand it in to be graded by him.
use some practice. You have 2 minutes to do multiplications
2 minutes, 100 questions.
2 through 12. So it can be any combination between 2 and 12, and you got 2 minutes to do as many as you can. And
Good for your brain.
It is.
Next thing he's gonna start giving you algebra.
I know, I could
When
use
when
that.
you get to the, like, the 7
then-
times 9 and the 8 times 6 and the, you know, those numbers, they take you more than a second to calculate.
How about the 12 table? I didn't remember, there's no need to memorize.
12,
12 table, you can just do it.
9,
Yeah.
9 I always like because you take the number that's multiplied by 9, you subtract 1, and then that number plus what equals 9.
Yeah,
So
but you only got 2 minutes.
Yeah, you gotta
63, no, I got it.
Right, and I'll tell you-
I went into college as a math major. I didn't come out as a math major.
Pretty much memory that. I have to say it's mostly memory.
Yeah.
For me, you know, when it comes to that, it really is.
It's a page with 100 on it, and like come in, get
I got through 98, but I got 6 wrong.
So
And I got like, and the ones you got wrong are stupid. It was like 2 times 6 I had is 18. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I thought it was 3 times 6.
So we have some students hitting 130
Yeah.
in the 2 minutes.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. It's
good.
just they've practiced it,
Yeah.
practiced it, and he's made a whole competition out of it and everything like that. So pretty good when they can beat our finance guy.
It's a little fresh.
Yeah, fresh minds.
I mean, it really can make a difference, I think.
You know, their minds are still, they still got a lot of room in
Yeah,
their minds.
especially when you think of the gobbledygook that's going on.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything that, you know, we go through, we see.
We're all here. Big crowd. Okay. Next, we have the petition of the Compass School of 537 Old North Road, Kingston, Rhode Island, 02881, for a special use permit under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking to modify the conditions associated with the previously granted special use permit related to the on-site educational institution, which is the Compass School. Lot size is 5 acres. A special use permit is required per the zoning ordinance, section 301, schedule of use regulations table, and section 907 are standards of relief. The owner of the property is the Compass School, not the Compass School, so I won't insult you, I'm sorry. For premises located at 537 Old North Road, South Kingstown, Assessors Map 16-4, Lot 16, and is zoned R40. For this, we have the application with a cover letter signed and dated January 11th, 2024. Owner authorization form signed and notarized January 9th, 2024. Traffic and safety study, 72 pages, prepared by D'Amico Engineering Technology, Inc., and stamped by David M. D'Amico, PE, dated December 8th, 2023. Supplemental materials, we have a cover letter, Google Maps photo, and overall site plan prepared by Torado Architects and stamped by David D'Amico, PE, dated October 8th, 2018. Zoning Board of Review decision, which is 3 pages, granted on January 16th, 2019, and recorded in the South Kingstown Land Evidence on January 24th, 2019, book 1696, and pages 409, 411. 200 abutters list, a foot abutters list, radius map, legal notices, and notarized affidavit of mailing. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Patrick McBurney on behalf of the Compass School. I practice with the law firm of Pannone, Lopes, Devereaux, and O'Gara in Johnston, Rhode Island. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Compass School. Along here with me is the Compass School's director, Brandy Lipitsky, the director of finance, Michael Commendatore, and professional engineer, David D'Amico. I can just give a quick overview, and I think that we'll need to swear these three because they will be offering testimony. But if we look at the screen, I think this is a good way to, just give the board an overall view of where we are. This was the site plan that accompanied the 2019 application. This was what was proposed to be built in 2019.
I was here.
Yeah, I saw your name in in the motion.
You were here too?
I think
All right.
I think you may have made the motion.
Uh-oh, the pressure's on me now.
But in any event, we'll explain what happened and how we came about today. But basically what we're looking for is approval from this board that the front parking area, which you see shaded in gray in the middle of the screen, and then the associated roundabout in the light gray. Those two elements of the site plan were never completed.
Okay.
And we are looking for basically approval as existing conditions today that satisfy the special use permit and will modify the 2019 application. And we'll explain the reasons why those modifications weren't made. We'll also have Mr. D'Amico testify as to the internal circulation and safety related to the site. So with that, I think it would make sense to have the three individuals sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, sure. And just, I mean, well, we can let you guys speak on about, I mean, but I think the reasons why I think are valid, but don't feel like you have to go into great detail about it. I mean, certainly the pandemic and other considerations are certainly valid.
Absolutely.
So don't feel like you have to go too deep. But
Okay, and considering the
please come up.
lateness of the hour, we will take that into consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm trying to be kind and but so yes, whoever wants to speak, please come up.
Just in case they ask you questions, you have to, yes, swear, just in case.
So just each state and spell your names, please, and then we'll get you sworn in.
My name is Brandy Lepiski. I'm the director of the Compass School.
You spell that for me?
My first name is Brandee, and my last name is Lapisky.
Okay. And I'll just have you each spell it, and then we'll swear you all in at the same time.
Michael Commendator, Finance Director for the Compass School. Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Commendator, C-O-M-M-E-N-D-A-T-O-R-E.
David D'Amico, Principal of D'Amico Engineering Technologies with offices at 2080 Mineral Spring Avenue in North Providence, and it is D-A-V-I-D, D'', capital A-M-I-C-O.
And you all swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Excellent. So who would like to go first?
Brandy. All right. So, Brandy, can you start off and just tell the board generally about the Compass School, its mission, its student population, and who it serves?
Sure. The Compass School is a kindergarten through 8th grade charter school located on Old North Road, just on the top end of the University of Rhode Island. We have a number of those speeding cars with university students that come our way as well. We have a max cap of 220 students at the site. We expanded just slightly during the time that we had the barn renovation completed. So we went from 10 class sizes to 11 class sizes, really not that mind-shattering. Also, a number of our students at our school are siblings. And so even though there's an additional class size, that doesn't account for a huge increase in our family population, as many of the students have siblings also attending the school. It's a high-achieving charter school, one of the highest achieving in Rhode Island. Part of the evidence related to that is that we only have 30 seats available each year. At last check, our lottery for next year is nearing 2,000 applicants in it, and we are in a very small, it's typically 1% to 2% of those who apply are accepted. A lot of the components that are driven around that are related to our mission, so that focuses around environmental sustainability. We're located on 20-acre historic farm that has really always been focused around farmland, and that is the main focus of our work with our students. We're a project-based learning school, so in addition to preparing for typical preparation for RICAS and other state tests, all of our students do hands-on applied work, and then they're required to present that work to a variety of different audiences. We focus on multi-age learning, so all of our students in our middle school are paired with younger students in our elementary school. They meet at least weekly, and they do a number of their presentations within each other, which helps to foster our culture, which is part of our social responsibility mission. So we've been around, this is our 21st year, so we keep celebrating that we're an adult kind of thing, and our campus continues to evolve and mature along with the age of our school, not only in terms of our performance, but in terms of the way that we seek to upkeep our buildings. In addition to the barn renovation that was completed back in 2020, we've been continuing to do a number of other improvements. For example, we recently reshingled our main schoolhouse. We recently did new railings and things like that. So anybody who's been driving past the property over the last 9 years that I've been a director has seen improvements to the campus that also align with the improvements to the quality of student learning.
So you mentioned the addition to the barn and that project, which was completed in 2020. That was part of the 2019 application to the board, correct?
Correct.
And what was the purpose of the barn renovation and the movement from the modular classrooms to the barn? Can you explain that?
Certainly. So previously, 4 of our 10 classrooms were in modular buildings that I'm not only the Compass director, I'm also a Compass parent. And as a parent, I knew that that wasn't satisfactory enough for my own children, and so it wasn't good enough for the other students of the Compass school. We sought out a long-term plan to renovate a debilitating structure on the property. And so the main purpose of the renovation was to move from what was supposed to be temporary modular classrooms that had actually had a much longer stay on the campus than should have been permitted, and then into the renovated barn, which was already starting to become a liability in terms of the standards that it had previously been kept.
In addition to the renovations to the barn, also part of that project was, and if we focus our attention on the screen, to the far side left, that driveway up into a parking lot. That's a brand new parking lot that was created as part of this project, right?
That's correct. That's our staff parking lot. Previously, we had staff and visitors mixed in our original front lot, which was tricky not only in terms of supporting those 2 different groups, but it limited the way that we were able to utilize dismissal and arrival routines. By having the staff separated into the new parking lot located on the left-hand side, it freed up a whole new set of options that we hadn't even considered when we originally came forward with the requests to expand the front lot located on the right-hand side.
And with respect to the front lot and also the associated landscaping that would have come with it after the front lot was completed, there came a point in time where the school had to decide to cut that from the project, right?
That's correct. There was a day where we were told that we needed to cut $1 million. And after having already done a number of different value engineering projects on the barn itself, we had already thinned out each of those line items and needed to look into other efficiencies on the property.
And what went into the decision of cutting the front parking lot versus saying, farther improvements to the barn?
Sure. I will admit that when this first was proposed, at that time, it seemed like, sure, that's great. We have money. We'll do this expanded lot and things like that. And I hadn't considered some of the efficiencies that we could have done with keeping the original footprint that was already established. One of the things that is also important to point out is that in order to achieve this expanded front lot, we would have had to take down 6 mature 30-foot trees and as well, so it's not just a expansion of the lot, but it's also a destruction of a number of the valued shade offerings and things like that. By moving the staff lot and then by getting a little bit creative in a very routine-based lane assignments, time allotments, and things like that, we're able to now move our entire student population of drop-offs, both by bus and by parent drop-offs, in and out of the campus in a 15-minute window, which compared to most other schools, especially the ones in town, I would say we might hold the record of the most efficient routines related to that, and that's with our existing parking lot, without having to take on both an expense to increase the footprint, but also, again, the destruction of those 6 different mature trees.
And it was touched upon in our transmittal line, the chairman referenced it tonight, but this was also at the height of COVID and the supply chain issues, correct?
It was definitely the craziest time in my life to be facilitating and creating a virtual school at the same time that we were trying to work through a number of different challenges that came up related to pandemic supply chain pieces. We were in the last 6 months of execution of the project, working on a very tight timetable to be ready for students to return to campus in September in the new buildings. We had already removed the modular classrooms so that going backwards was no longer a choice. And there were a number of different pieces that came up where materials weren't available, crews weren't available because a number of people are out with COVID and things like that. But we were ultimately able to pull it off at a cost.
And you reopened to students learning on-site in September 2020, correct?
We did, and we were super grateful for the space and also the brand new HVAC units, which I had never fully appreciated until that moment.
And since September 2020, You've been utilizing the space in an as existing condition, and you haven't had any issues with drop-off or vehicle travel, have you?
That's correct. And one of the things to emphasize is that it's very important to me that it's a safe experience. Again, I'm not only the director, but I'm also a parent, and part of the way that I demonstrate the value is that I am one of the morning crossing guards. I don a beautiful orange vest and things like that. My partner in that project is Mr. Mike. We can be seen every Monday through Friday, 8:25 to 8:40, out there with welcoming the families and everything. So part of it, the adherence to the protocols that are in place, is also because the person who enforces them is out there as monitor.
So what I'm looking at, I mean, the aerial view, and knowing the site, I mean, basically this has been your traffic pattern for some time. I mean, this has been there when you had, I mean, geez, when I was working there, like a long time ago. But this is that same pattern. Basically, there are two breaches in the wall, right? And that you're, so all you're asking is really to kind of tighten that up. I mean, if we're looking at the overlay difference, I mean, you're just not swinging out as far to the north.
What was
or
proposed was
south.
a slight expansion of the existing parking structure. That expansion never occurred.
Right.
What we're looking for is essentially saying that the modifications that were proposed in 2019 to the parking area, number one, were never completed, and number two, that all other conditions have been met, and we don't need to meet that condition.
So it's a matter of saying that the conditions that are there now allow for the proper ingress and egress of school vehicles, since we're a special use permit, to make sure that you guys can get the vehicles in and out in a safe manner.
I think that'd be the standard you'd be looking at, in addition to whether it would have any detrimental impact on the neighborhood. I think the fact that they've been operating in this state for 3.5 years goes to that.
And breaking records, apparently the whole time. So, okay, so when it comes to the vehicles, what's the biggest bus that you have come in there? Do you have a full, what is it, 40 kids or whatever it is?
No, a regular sized bus can hold 72 passengers.
That many, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man,
I mean,
they're
3 to
packing
a
like
seat is not
sardines.
very
No, they're
comfortable,
small.
but if
Yeah.
they're kindergartners, it's okay.
Yeah, so you have those buses that
We do.
can make it in there, no problem. They make the turn, they're not stopping traffic, or, and just to make that turn.
Correct, and it should be noted that we haven't increased the number of buses that we have. When we added that additional classroom, like I was saying, so many of the students were siblings, that it didn't require us to add any additional buses. And when we were originally proposing the wider arc and things like that, it's because we anticipated at that time that we would need that, but
Right.
instead, we were able to do different efficiencies with the routes to avoid it.
So you're saying that the capacity within this U, you know, I'm calling it a U, but the capacity with it is enough not to back up on the road, and you guys aren't causing obstructions on the road or any hazards?
And we have a traffic study related to that.
That's
Right.
correct, and Mr. D'Amico will testify.
Okay, and okay. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for?
Yep, any other board members' questions? Nope, okay, thank you.
Mr. D'Amico?
So tell me about this study. So tell me how, what's happening at that time of them like coming in and going?
Before we move into that, may I either ask the board to qualify Mr. D'Amico as an expert?
Oh, sure, of course. I'm just, I'm in a rush. No, okay, I'm not. But
And we can go briefly.
I
know
understand.
Mr. D'Amico has testified before this board as an expert
Yes.
before, so if you're willing to accept him, I don't have to go through his qualifications.
no, I mean, he's been in front of this board before, and he's been in front of other boards that others are familiar with you. So absolutely, he can be recognized as an expert.
Okay, then you can answer his question.
Yes, and
If the answer, you weren't an expert, then maybe not.
I
but-
think one of the items that when you look at the aerial, you can see all the parking.
Right.
That is not something that I saw when I walked on that site the first days back in 2018, where we did a stage 2 for RIDE. But notice all the vehicles parked in the, in what we, the faculty parking area and none in the U-shaped area. So when I walked out on that and I saw the vehicles, those same vehicles parked in the front, I essentially doubled the size of that parking area. So when you look at what I came in front of you with, I doubled the parking in that front area, and we just swung it around so it's kind of on steroids.
Sure.
And I did not do a traffic study. I did not need to do a traffic study. I just needed to do, at the time, now a lot of my work is to get ride approval for the client, and come up with the safety measures that we need to get ride approval. And that's what we did. So I went I went with, I call it on steroids, and it just, as you can see, the resultant of doing the back parking lot really eliminated the need for that second parking spot up front. So getting to what we did, so all the construction was done. Back in, we did traffic counts in April of '23, 48-hour counts along North Road, and we did the turning movement counts at the 3 entrances along the road. And essentially we did find that your speed is about, on an average, about 8 miles an hour over the speed limit through there. Speed limits, I think, posted
seems low,
25, 20, well, that was
well,
on
average, right?
That was
So
on an
most
average.
people are going to speed limit. And
Yes, on an average.
Yeah.
It's one of the more tangent roads in your town,
Yep.
and it goes for almost 20, at least almost a half a mile.
Right.
That stretch, before you have to swing
Slow
into
down.
slow down
sorry.
into URI. So it's and flat.
Yep.
So it really has some characteristics that we don't see, but it's also makes it safe for turning movements, because you have plenty of sight distance there when you come out, even with the stone walls, and so it passes. So all the exits out of the site and then meet all the site distance requirements, and we also, one of the key things was the peak time. So when we do the counts, we know the amount of vehicles on the road at any time during the 48 hours, and we go in and we study the peak times. So the AM peak was around 8 o'clock in the morning. The school starts their drop-off around 8:25, so it's really not meeting the same peak of the road. So that is a positive for us, so that we're exiting and entering the site not at the peak of the road. The road, it actually is dropping in peak activity by that time. And in the afternoon, it tends to coincide, so the peaks coincide. So we would want to look at the afternoon, because that's critical, and we found that the gaps, so the time between vehicles on the road allows for plenty of time to exit or enter onto North Road from the site. So, and then we also looked at the internal, and they have a wonderful system where they have times set for each parent. They have individual lanes in there, and the parent knows when to come into the site, what lane to go in, and then they're directed how to exit the site. So we believe it's extremely safe in there, and we see no impact with without doing that additional site.
Now, how does this, do you have to resubmit to RIDE at that point, at this point? I mean, are they looking for you to alter or to verify this? Like, are they like, where's the plan?
I'm going to leave that.
I can speak to that. So charter schools are under a higher degree of scrutiny than a typical district. Every 5 years, there's a whole site visit process where the team comes out, conducts a number of different variety of test scores, but also site-based activities. They participated with me and did the routine and things like that, and I explained to them at that time of the adjustments that we had made, and there was no further recommendations to move forward with anything other than what we currently have. So from RIDE's perspective, we've satisfied the need.
So they weren't looking for an additional traffic study or anything like that? Okay.
They were not.
So you're just looking to really solidify this. It wasn't as if someone brought this to your attention to say, like, you need to come back because you're currently in violation?
No, I think what prompted this was a final certificate of occupancy was not issued based upon the fact that this was not completed.
Got it.
I then coordinated a conversation with your building official and Amy Goins because the original application had to go to the development plan review process.
Right.
This does not have to go because I had pointed out to them that charter schools are actually considered public schools, and public schools are exempt from DPR review.
Interesting. Okay. That makes sense, I think, right? Yeah. Okay. No, it does make sense. So I didn't mean to cut him off. But I think if
he was wrapping up. So.
Okay, yeah, so.
I'm fine.
Let me make sure that nobody else here, any of the board members' questions?
Just for the record, Mr. D'Amico, any traffic accident reports since this scheme has been in process, either ingress or egress?
We did, and we haven't done a search since, I would say, since October. All right, we did some modifications to this study. After that, I had, this is the second rendition. But our initial studies, we found no accidents along that stretch during that time period, yes.
It would be a blemish on Ms. Lepiski's ability to manage traffic, I think, so.
Yes, yeah. But we were looking mainly at the road, North Road, in that section, yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, it's a straight road, there's no reason to stop, like no stop signs, no real turns, it's a pretty. That is correct. It's a pretty good road for the school.
It does, and your what we call your margin of error is great.
Right.
You have a great margin of error because it's straight and it's pretty wide.
Right.
And it's flat, so.
And obviously this could change based on development or something like that, but at this time it seems to be pretty stable.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, I have nothing farther at this time for the board. I'm not sure if there's members of the public that want to speak, but if they do, I'd request an opportunity for rebuttal.
Sure.
Thank you.
Please. So any other questions, board members? No? Okay. Anyone from the audience want to speak on behalf? For or against?
Hi, my name's Peter Plaskunas.
Yes, Peter.
P-E-T-E-R, and the last name is Plaskunas, P-L-E-S-K-U-N-A-S.
And you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
My wife and I own the properties directly across the street from the Compass School at 544 Old North Road and 510 Old North Road.
Okay.
And we've owned 510 Old North Road since the Terra Savages owned this property, and the very first school was proposed there.
Yep.
And we've been attending these meetings for that entire time, which is over 20 years.
Yes.
And we were very involved with this project, and we're happy. Everything's going really well. I just want to make sure you guys know that.
Sure.
Our three concerns over all of the years were really lighting, the landscape screening along the road, and parking, close to the road.
Sure.
So the original plan that the school was going to do here, right? included all the elements that we were hoping for.
The screening,
And
the lighting.
The screening, the lighting, and the parking back away from the road and our houses.
Sure.
So I do want to say the lighting was probably the biggest thing, and it's been fantastic.
Oh,
You
good.
know, the lights in the parking lot are a warm Kevlar, or not Kevlar, but it's a warm color for those lights. They're low,
Nice.
and all of the lights, just about all of the lights in the school go off at 7 p.m., which was the arrangement, and it makes it
Sure.
really wonderful up there. Keeps that rural nature.
Yeah.
The screening is very good along the road. But I do have like a picture just to show you, just to know. Here's a picture.
Please.
Here's a picture I took yesterday.
Okay.
And that's my only, I don't
Objectors one.
I don't remember what the plan was exactly for the landscaping along the road, Old North Road. It's just, parallel with Old North Road, and this is the south west corner, directly across the street from our driveway at 510 Old North Road. And I don't remember if there were supposed to be trees all the way down, but you can see in one of those trees, a very decorative kind of a peeling bark kind of tree in that picture. I'm pretty sure it's dead. And
Okay.
it's not a problem, but I guess given that what we have now with landscaping is what's proposed is to leave it now where
Sure.
it's at. If they were going to go through if the school was going to go through with the additional widening of the parking lot, there was other landscaping that was going to happen. Obviously, that's not necessary.
Right.
But I would just like to note that that the school will maintain, and maybe even if any of those trees die that are in place now or have died, like this one, like review the plans and just make sure everything is the way it was supposed to be from that last approval. I don't know how to describe it.
No, understood. I
You
mean,
know.
it seems as if whatever the landscape plan was with this previous plan wasn't implemented, so.
Not completely,
Right.
but at this end is the only end I'm, concerned with, that southwest corner. I mean, I guess I'm concerned with the whole thing. I mean,
So-
just to maintain it.
Help me out where this is.
It's the southwest corner of see where 510 is?
Yep, it's right
Okay?
across from that.
See, and if you can't quite see, yeah, exactly. Right up in that stretch
Okay.
is where that was taken. The picture was taken from here looking this way.
And that's not a cut in the wall. That's not a.
That was a cut in the wall, and as part of the proposal, they filled that in.
Okay.
And that leads me just to the one other thing I wanted to bring up,
Yep.
just to make sure we have it on the record, sort of,
Yep.
is see the drive that's parallel to the Old North Road there? You can see the dirt behind that landscaping.
Sure.
As I remember, that was supposed to be sort of eliminated and not used anymore. That was an iteration from years ago of a different way that the traffic was gotten off the road. And so I just wanted to, since we're not doing everything now,
Right.
I don't want to forget about those things.
I mean, sure.
That's all, and
Okay.
nothing, and the
We
road.
can ask them about it.
The road can be there, but we're just trying to avoid having a lot of cars parked, or any cars really parked in there. I know there's exceptions when there's a big to-do at the school.
Sure.
But the road doesn't matter, it's just the cars.
Meaning that there are cars that park on the street sometimes?
No, on that little dirt road behind Old North Road, parallel to Old North Road.
Okay, well, we can find out. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm laughing only because we talked before about, well, I'm sure they can park wherever they want, but we just talked earlier about not parking in areas on another property. So we'll clarify that as to where they're allowed to go and what they're allowed to do.
And it's just, especially the lights. The lights were the main thing. They're great, but I just didn't want to. There's been so many iterations in this, different, not Brandy, not the people that presently run the school, but before that there were various proposals and changes that were half-made and weren't completed, and a lot of different, very complicated if you go back through the records.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to lose track of where we're at now.
So mainly your biggest concern is the parking behind the wall and that spot where it used to be a breach through the wall being completed.
Yes, to whatever it was supposed to be. I don't
completed.
Really know. And
Do you, I mean, are you asking for vegetation?
yeah,
Vegetative
vegetation,
screening?
just the screen, whatever was supposed to be there.
Well, I mean,
no,
it's
whatever
a new
was.
application, so, I mean, really, it's up to us to define it, if we wanted to. So, I mean, what are you thinking, like any type of vegetation screening?
Well,
or
no,
do you want
like
anything in
trees.
particular?
What I'm interested in is just what was proposed in the complete plan of this last development
At
of the
least
school.
by this overall site plan, I don't have any other document but this one, and I can't remember last week, so to say I remember back then would be wrong, but.
There were
so-
landscaping plans.
Yeah, I'm sure there were, and I'm not sure if that spot in particular was well-defined. But we can find out, and if they know, maybe we can get some answers for you.
That's all.
Okay.
But overall, very happy with the whole
good.
thing, and
I'm
hey,
glad.
less
They're
is
good
more.
neighbors.
Less parking lot is good for us.
Yeah,
So
no,
this whole
and I know
plan
you
is
had
great.
concerns years ago, and I'm glad they've been a good neighbor.
Yeah,
That's
it's all
great.
good.
Okay,
Thank
excellent.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to address that concern, I do have a larger version of the site plan that was presented, and that didn't call for any landscaping in that portion. What I want to make clear is that aside from the landscaping that was associated with the enlargement of the parking lot,
right,
we've completed all other landscaping.
Okay.
So what was proposed, we completed, aside from the landscaping that would have come after the parking lot was enhanced.
Right.
I'm happy to pass this up if you'd like to take a look at it.
Well, I mean, what of this spot in particular? It
Yeah.
seems like that this spot is, was left unattended.
Sure.
So.
Well, I would say is it wasn't called for in the plan. I know
Sure.
Brandy had a comment about when she saw the picture, though, so I will let her.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure it's something you see. So tell me what you guys would like to do about that.
Certainly. So first, I'll just say right from the beginning, if Mr. Plaskunis's request is that we extend the vegetation screen down there to include a couple more trees down at that site, that's not a problem. We're big on the trees.
Yeah,
We'll
I
even
figured
have
as
the
much. You
kids
wouldn't have a
plant
problem
the
with that.
trees. Like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can easily incorporate that into the work. I just wanted to point out that the area that is noted here was the break in the wall there, which was actually previously an essential part of our traffic pattern and everything, and it was at the neighbor's request that we block that. At the time, I said, sure, we'll block it. It seems like an essential part of your request. I didn't yet have a plan of how we were going to work around it. It was a pretty significant hardship on our part to be able to offer that, but we did close it up, and as a result, the picture that you see here is a typical school day. We know that it is because all of the staff members' cars are in the parking lot, and they don't typically come on the weekend. And so you can see that this top visitor parking lot is totally empty, so we know it's not arrival or dismissal time, and there's no cars parked on that side road. And there wouldn't be during arrival or dismissal either. It's not part of Mylene's plan. The only time that we would use that are a handful, fewer than 10 times a year, that we would be having families on campus for significant project share events and things like that, an ice cream social at the beginning of the school year. And previously, we've provided a list to the Plaskunis family of what those typical timeframes are so that they can know if it's a scheduled or an unanticipated time.
And let me just ask, Mr. Gorman, is there any limitations as to where they can have a vehicle on this property?
So this area was previously used as parking, so it'd be like legal non-conforming unless if there was a requirement to remove it. But they do have a parking plan that was originally submitted.
Mr. Chair, I don't mean to interrupt, but
No,
I think I might be
it's
able
all
to shed some light on this.
Sure.
Because as part of the last application, the Compass School and Mr. Plaskunis, we actually did enter into a settlement agreement basically an agreement as to certain conditions that the school had to comply with. One of those conditions is that we can't park cars within 75 feet of the roadway, which would be that strip right there. So
That you wouldn't?
That we would not, yes.
Okay.
Aside, with the exception of the special events, which we provide notice of. So that's probably where the 75-foot restriction and the basis for Mr. Plaskunis's claim, which he is correct.
But that agreement is not with the town, that's with him?
It's not with the town, it's with him.
Okay, okay. But it's, so the town is not restricting you as to, aside, because...
It was referenced in the 2019 decision, so I think that it would have some applicability through the town.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't really filed with it, right? So it wouldn't be considered...
Yeah, I think it's an open
restriction.
question whether we really could enforce a private agreement, even if referenced. I think you could probably, the reading I would probably take of that is that we referenced it, and it was part of what you considered to grant the application. I don't think that means that gives us standing to enforce the private agreement. I think it's ultimately between the parties.
I mean, from what I do remember, it probably was the fact that there was, there was knowledge of there being concerns. Right. And that we were aware of the fact that you had come to an agreement.
Mr. Chairman,
please.
if I may have a copy of that decision, and it does indicate, you made the motion. I also submit this settlement agreement between the Compass School and the Plaskunis family, where they have identified 8 different promises, mutual promises, that the two neighbors will abide by, and this is a special use permit. So that's part of the motion. And I will also point out further on that the statement was, or the decision was, we had the landscape plan presented to us, and we found the landscape plan is more than satisfactory in terms of screening and buffering, as well as replacing some trees that will be affected. So this indicates that there was a landscape plan. Where that is and who has it, and who knows? I don't know.
We have a copy of it.
So,
Okay,
if
so-
we approve this, sorry.
Okay, so that's what the gentleman was looking for, that plan, I think.
That's all I was referencing. I'm not requesting anything more, and I believe just as part of it, that one tree died, but like, this is not an emergency.
Sure, well...
I think we're in good shape on it.
Just to respond to that, I think the testimony has been is that the landscape plan, aside from the landscaping that was to be associated with the improvements to the parking lot, has been completed. I think that the requested trees go above and beyond what was proposed in the landscape plan, but you've heard assurances from my client today that they will improve that area with trees that are satisfactory to Mr. Plaskunis.
Excuse me, without seeing that plan, I can't agree or disagree with you.
That's fair.
I don't see it. But it was submitted as part of the motion, and it passed as part of the motion. So I would say someone needs to take a look at that and see if you're in compliance with what was passed. You're not asking for a waiver of that tonight, I don't think.
We're not, no. The only thing we're seeking is a modification of the 2019 decision that required the plan which showed the expansion of the parking lot and the landscaping that was specifically associated with that approval. And that's the only thing that's holding up the certificate of occupancy. The building and zoning official has looked at the site, has said the only thing that is holding up the certificate of occupancy is the fact that those improvements were not completed. So, yes, we don't have that plan with us today, but I think based on the testimony and based on the fact that the only hurdle to the certificate of occupancy are the two things that we've identified tonight, which is the parking lot and the landscaping associated with the parking lot, is pretty good evidence that the landscaping plan was completed.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Gorman?
We do have a proposed, original approved landscape plan, as well as an as-built landscape plan from the landscape architect. I don't have that readily available.
But you believe it to be completed?
I do. This was probably 2 years ago that
Okay.
I remember going through this, but the top of my head, I can't say with 100%.
But you felt satisfied that they've accomplished sort of the plan as proposed?
Yes, with the exception to the parking area.
Right, okay. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else questions of the applicant? Any thoughts? Anyone have any concerns, or Mr. Rosen, you have anything to suggest? Okay.
You're not asking for much.
No, they're looking to keep what they have, and I think they've demonstrated that what they have is functioning, and it's functioning safely. And I think that's the concern of the special use, that they can get in and out of the property without any risk to anyone either on the street or in the building. So, all right. Anyone want to make a motion or give it a shot?
You made the
No, that's all right. Yeah, I could give it a shot. I wasn't chairman then, though. All right. So, I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition of the Compass School of 537 Old North Road for their special use permit, that they wanted to modify the conditions associated with the previously granted special use permit, and that special use permit was decided back in 2019, and this property has been a school since around 2000, 2001, 21 years, I believe you said. And they had come in front of the board back in 2019 to propose improvements to the property, which included a new back or remodeled back barn and new egress through the property. They were able to complete the majority of their physical improvements, but they were unable to complete the driveway. So they were asking us to consider the existing driveway as it is now as the completed plan. They had submitted a traffic study that reviewed sort of the volume of traffic on the road. They talked about how the intensity of the traffic during the times of drop-off and pickup are some of the lighter parts of the day. They've demonstrated that the means of getting in and out of the property are safe by having appropriate designated personnel that are getting it in and out. So for this hearing, we had the head of school as well as the traffic study presented to us by Mr. D'Amico and Ms. Lepisky, right? Had an opportunity to sort of talk about their means and methods of getting one in and out. So we also had Mr. Pleskunas had spoken about his concerns being in a butter to the property in the some of the screening that was existing on the property from an old egress point on to Old North Road that was since closed up. And he was concerned, so some dead vegetation. Ms. Lepisky had talked about filling some of that area with some new material since the school is happy to plant things. But Mr. Pleskunas was happy with the time since 2019 and how the school was behaving and that they were being good neighbors. So The following, like I said, the materials, we have the traffic study, we have the site plan, and we had a photograph submitted by Mr. Plaskunis, which we can send that over. So we find that the special use permit is specifically authorized by this ordinance, because this is basically, well, it's allowed because we need to have a sense as to how movement in and out of a particular property for a special use is going to be conducted, and they sort of provided that tonight. That we find that the special use permit does meet all the criteria set forth in the subsection of this ordinance authorizing the special use. And like I said, it's they've proven that they can manage the traffic and safely on and off the property. We find the granting the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. In doing so, we did consider whether or not satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been made or will be made concerning the following matters. And mainly we talked about ingress and egress, and that the automotive and pedestrian safety, convenience, traffic flow and control and access in case of fire, emergency, or catastrophe. They had shown that the existing plan, or the proposed back in 2019 of what was executed, they were able to have the staff and other people that are on the site sort of parking off to the back, leaving the front lot open, which enables sort of traffic to move in and out very freely. They do have some events during the year that will have a greater capacity that they don't have any trouble sort of accommodating on the site, and they're notifying Mr. Plaskunis as to when those events are. So there is no off-street parking and loading areas where required, with particular attention to items for noise, glare, odor effects, or for any adjoining lots. And we did consider that, because none of those things are in the front in terms of noise, glare, or odor. Trash storage is not on that side. Utilities weren't necessarily here because there was no change. Screening and buffering, we talked about it, where that they're going to do it on their own accord. We're not going to sort of make any requirements for that. No additional signs, no changes in lighting, and general compatibility with lots in the same or abutting zoning districts. And that doesn't really apply here because this is a special use for the school to exist in a residential neighborhood, and they have proven to be good neighbors. And like I said, there are no conditions to this. So with that, I make a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it,
Okay.
but I would ask that you find an additional finding of fact, and that is that the building official has, in fact, testified that the original landscape plan is in compliance.
Okay. Yes, we will add that to the motion. Could I get a second to that?
Second.
Okay, excellent. Any other discussion? Nope, hearing none. Mr. Cagnetta, aye. Mr. Daniels? Mr. Rosen?
Aye.
Mr. Pelchier?
Aye.
Ms. Hicks?
Aye.
Our motion passes. Good luck, guys. Thank you. All right, so next month is going to be a busy one.
Very busy. We have 8 petitions so far, and we don't close until Friday. 8.
We had 5 tonight.
Yeah. April 24th, it's the 4th Wednesday. Council
Did I?
has budget hearings.
Did I not see minutes? Did I see minutes?
The minutes were sent.
Is that right here? Okay. So we have the minutes here from February 21st. Anybody have any changes or alterations? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
That's all, because it's really
No.
nice.
Is that it?
It's really nice.
Everybody here next month? Thank you, guys. Everybody here? Yes? I think so. Well, I'm just making sure I'm going to be here. Yes. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone.